The head of the Vine clan is young and handsome, and he never ages all those born. Elvor must prove their worth to the head of the clan. If you fail to do this, then you can consider yourself a loser and become tree food. The young man turned to Magnus and asked where his fiancée Gloriosa Elvor was at the moment. In ancient times, which our heroine no longer remembers well, that was really her name. The Havan clan, the flower people who grow special flowers, an isolated, powerful family with a proud and thousand-year history. Today, Elvor will be destroyed because of them. After being sacrificed to the divine tree, she gradually assimilated with it, but at the same time used this power pretending to provide the necessary information, but in fact hiding the secret code. A little bit more, and she will bring here a man who will overthrow Elvor. But this man is her fiancé. This is none other than Duke Arvid Yoltachia. How could such a coincidence happen? The guy repeated his question about where his bride was, and if he didn't answer, this time he would lose his tongue. The young man hissed that this girl was behind the curtain that was behind him. The girl felt sorry that she would not be able to personally see the unhappy face of her older brother when he became enslaved by the one he ignored, just because he was a child. After Gloriosa heard someone's footsteps, she thought that if she still had a heart, it would probably be beating very hard. When the young man saw in front of him a girl who had grown together with a tree, he understood why he had been unable to find her for so long. He always felt suspicious about it and wondered why he felt like they were trying to take him somewhere instead of killing him. But it turns out she was asking him to find the divine tree, or rather her. But in any case, thanks to her, he had fun rivalry with her, was the only incentive in his damned life. Then he came closer to her and asked what the girl wanted him to do. Gloriosa replied that she really hoped that these people would suffer as much as she did. Now let him cut down this tree and burn it, so that not a trace of it remains. The young man replied that, okay, he would do everything the way his bride wanted. Magnus, who ran out into the street, shouted what he was even going to do. Let him stop immediately. But Arvid destroyed him in the blink of an eye with his magical power, and declared that they would all suffer in the hell he created for eternity. Then he approached our heroine and asked what would happen to her if he cut down this tree. When Gloriosa replied that her soul would be freed, but he would be cursed, the guy noted that it was very romantic to get cursed for the sake of his bride. But he already has 3 curses, so he doesn't care if another one is added. Our heroine was in great pain when he freed her, but she didn't want to be a tree for the rest of her life, because she is a human. Having cut down the tree, the young man said that now she could rest, and the girl in turn thanked him. Then she thought about what would happen if she lived with him. Perhaps they would be very happy, in some unknown future that she didn't have, but that could have been hers. After some time, when our heroine suddenly came to her senses, she found herself among some people and near the harp she was playing. This must all be some kind of dream, but her hands move like a human's. Seeing Magnus in front of her, who turned out to be alive, she decided that it was a terrible dream. Suddenly, a voice was heard, which told them to stop, and added that everyone had tried well, except for one person, namely Gloriosa. Our heroine had an inexplicable feeling of déjà vu, as if this was the last spring banquet she had ever attended as a human. The older brother hissed that she was a useless girl, and then ordered them to stop playing as he needed to check their fingers. The little girl did not understand why this particular memory appeared, because she had many others. When the guy suddenly grabbed her hand, the baby felt pain, but did not understand why it must be a dream. If this is a real day from the past, then she knows what the young man will say next. The young man declared that she was so ugly that not even one petal could bloom, and it seemed that she would become food for the tree. Then the guy chuckled and muttered when Gloriosa would be able to contribute to the family. The little girl clearly remembered how she breathed her last in Arvid's arms, and also that this unbearable family was destroyed and sent to hell. But will she really have to go through this again? It seems that even after dying, she cannot free herself from it. Her thoughts were interrupted by her brother's voice, who before leaving said that from today on, she would be on probation and that she should practice on this lyre in her room. The guys around began to disperse, saying that there was no need to mess with someone who was in the very last place. Suddenly, the girl laughed loudly and thought to herself that everything couldn't be exactly the same. All the information she saw and heard when she was a sacred tree remained in her head, all the things that Elvor would do in the future and how their situation would develop. Is this a gift from Arvid? He is the greatest magician in history, so he can probably turn back time. Thanks to him for saving her in her past life. But this time she will help herself, and also she is going to meet him. Elvor of the Vine clan had special abilities, namely flowers bloomed on their little fingers. As their abilities developed, a mark would appear on their nails, and each flower would have a unique power. Only after all the flowers had bloomed would they be recognized as members of the family, so the children would make every effort to make them bloom. They usually bloom by the age of 12, but in hers, they had barely begun to bloom at the age of 14, and even then, she had no special abilities. Of all the 37 children of the previous head of the family, she was the most useless, and in the end, she was abandoned as fodder for the tree. Looking at herself in the mirror, the little girl was convinced that this was really not a dream. She really became human again. And also her abilities returned to their previous state, only a bud was visible on the nail. But suddenly, a flower appeared right in front of her. The little one was surprised that she really had not only memories, but also abilities. However, the power of her flower is a flower flame that cannot burn anything. It only looks luxurious, but in fact it is useless. What should she do with it now? There was a sharp knock at the door, so our heroine realized that she needed to hide the flower as quickly as possible. It turned out to be a servant who asked what she was doing there at all, and why she didn't practice playing the lyre. This woman's name is Noma. She is her nanny and maid as well as a spy, who reports to Magnus about her every move. When the maid said that she needed to sit down and play quickly, because the baby was only giving her more work, Gloriosa replied that she wouldn't. The woman was taken aback and asked again what she had just said. In what sense would she not train? Had she gone crazy or something? The little girl replied that maybe, but she might say one more crazy thing. Noma is fired. The maid chuckled that she was absolutely crazy. How could she possibly fire her? Because it even sounded incredible. But suddenly, the girl added that she knew that the maid was stealing women's jewelry. Let him not even think about escaping, because she knows that they are under this bed, so she offers a deal the woman will cover for her when she needs it. Noma immediately screamed that this was slander. The little one retorted that it was she who was stealing the jewelry, or else she had decided to set up her mistress. Out of fear, the numerous children in the house kept their distance from each other, and since she was the most useless of them all, she was simply despised. No one went into her room. No one, except this woman, only after our heroine became a sacred tree, learned that she hid the stolen jewelry in her room. However, even if the truth came out now, no one would doubt it. But the little one was forbidden to approach the other hostesses. But with Noma, it will be different. Death awaits her. The maid is very stupid, and what's even more stupid is that the little girl in the past really tried to make her love her. But the maid was always indifferent, but she was the only person who was next to her. However, the girl would no longer act so stupidly, after which she declared that she was going to go to the first mistress. She will tell her that someone is stealing jewelry, and that she has 4 accomplices. Let her think about which of these 4 will confess first, because it was she who was in charge of everything. Servants who have worked in Elvor for a long time must be smart to survive. They must know what is safe to touch and what should be absolutely avoided. The maid didn't understand what had happened to her at all. These were no longer dead eyes. They were eyes that radiated a bright and vital force, as if overnight she had become a completely different person. Gloriosa asked if she had anything to say, and noted to herself that she was smart. It was time to choose. After thinking for a moment, the maid addressed her respectfully and asked if she wanted Noma to do something for her. The girl ordered that she go to all the other servants and tell them to come to her one by one secretly. And let them also beware of the cannibal. There is no guarantee that only Magnus can make him bloom. A few days later, the little girl was lying in her bed and wondering if Noma was really that scared. Since she is Magnus's only sister, the maid must have thought that the baby might also raise an ogre. Our heroine suspected that the woman would want to run away, taking all the jewelry with her, because she was capable of such a thing. This was a plus, because in the end everything worked out well, because now there were fewer eyes watching her. She managed to attract several more maids thanks to the information Gloriosa received when she was a sacred tree. But the problem was that its flowers were not capable of burning anything, they only left soot behind. This was one of the main reasons why she was chosen as food for the sacred tree. I wonder if her abilities have changed since returning. She doesn't know the details, but it's clear that the regression has affected her body. Her whole body hurts because of the high temperature. It's very good that she's on probation now. Then she decided that she needed to eat something to cheer herself up, and she saw some note under the plate. It was said there that a guest from the Duchy of Yoltitia would arrive very soon. Today was the only day of the year when Elvador opens its doors and welcomes guests. There will be a grand spring banquet the day when Arvid will arrive at the estate. On this day, all 4 duchies of the empire are invited: the family of the north and connections, Gaios Elvador, the flower family of the East Anas, the family of the Chronicle in the west, and the star family of the south Yultisia. The first emperor gifted each duchy only the heads of the family, and their successors knew what these divine objects were and where they were hidden. The Tree of Wisdom, Elvador, was one of these items, and Arvid in the future destroyed all divine gifts, including this tree. The guy was going to do this in his youth. Then the little girl can be useful to him because she knows the essence and location of all divine objects. You need to hustle a little in order to talk to him. This will be her first game. She had already suffered enough while she was a sacred tree. The only question was whether her half-brothers were still as stupid. While the little one was thinking about who to start with, a voice rang out and sarcastically asked if the probationary period was already over. Then they threw a gnawed chicken bone at her and ordered her to sit down with the remains and then get out of the dining room. Why doesn't she say anything? The girl should thank Bert and get out of here quickly. Is the little girl so touched by his kindness that she can't even utter a word? This guy, the only son of his first wife, gets the best grades. However, after Magnus took over as head, he became simply a nobody. Sooner or later, Bert will die at the hands of his older brother. Knowing all this, our heroine understood how worthless the young man was. Then she sighed dramatically and thanked him, adding that it must have been very tasty. Now, thanks to his beloved brother, the little one will be full. The young man did not understand what was happening to her. What kind of facial expression was that? He thought that she would, as usual, grovel. But why was she only smiling? And then Gloriosa looked at him confidently and asked if she shouldn't give him something in return. Maids immediately materialized around him and poured a bucket of some liquid on him. After this, there was a deathly silence in the dining room. Everyone present did not understand what had just happened. The young man lost his temper and shouted, "Are they all crazy? Do they really think that they will get away with it so easily that he will personally punish them?" One of the maids replied that he could not do that, for that he first had to get permission from the head of the family. And the words he just said can be considered as a challenge to the authority of the head of the family. The little girl added that if her brother continued to behave like this, she would have no choice but to report everything to the head of the family. When the guy shouted that he should just dare to do that, did he really want to get spanked? Gloriosa noted to herself that no matter what he did, it would be useless. In this life, unlike the last, absolutely all the maids are on her side. She knows everything about everyone who eats and sleeps in Elvador, their families, their desires, so making them your puppets turned out to be not so difficult. You just need to use the carrot and stick correctly. After which, she asked why the young man was so angry, since he had received first place undeservedly. The young man knew all the answers perfectly well in advance, and that is why he was victorious. It is because of this that Ayla has always been only in second place in this ranking. When Bert asked in surprise how she knew about this, the girl stated that he did not even deny anything. The girl lost her temper and started calling him unflattering names, shouting that it was not for nothing that it seemed strange to her. Then, our heroine decided to proceed to the second part of the game and headed towards the window, after which she stated that they would have to get stuck here for some time. Let them not even think of running away, for it is impossible. All the doors leading outside are locked by the maids. It's better to avoid windows if the guys don't want to burn alive. After which she jumped out and noted to herself that her body had not yet fully recovered, as it was difficult. They can only be locked up for a short time, so there is not much time. If they do not appear for a long time, they will start looking for them, so you need to hurry. It was necessary to move along the street, crawling, in order to remain unnoticed. Suddenly, her nose started bleeding, and the little girl realized that she was too tired, because it was the first time she used her ability, so it was quite logical that it was a blow to her body. In addition, our heroine's endurance was initially very weak. Then memories came flooding back to her of her mother, asking what had happened to her daughter, whether she had gotten hurt somewhere. After which she hugged the baby and told her to remember that she was born in Elvador. The more pain they suffer, the stronger they become. But if something happens to her that will be difficult to bear, then let her find her groom. Her fiancé is the son of her mother's most valuable and special friend. Together with him, they will definitely be able to overcome everything. Soon after the woman told her this, she suddenly left this world as if she had foreseen her own death. As her mother said, the girl became as strong as her past life was painful, and she will definitely meet her fiancé. Suddenly, she heard a conversation between aristocrats. One of them said that he had heard that her son had distinguished himself in hunting competitions. Gloriosa noted the shiny silver hair. She only saw his back, but even by his voice, she can determine who it is, none other than Arvid. The little girl was very happy that she was able to find him faster than she could have imagined. But how could she approach him? The guy continued that he heard that he had amused the crowd by shooting arrows in the wrong places several times. The woman did not like this, and she objected that her son had a gentle temperament, so he was not able to shoot the unfortunate animal. He simply knew little about it. The young man asked him to forgive him if he had offended her in any way. He thought that they would also like the story about her son, since they were talking so animatedly about the young lady whom they had never even seen. While the little girl was thinking about what they were talking about, the woman screamed that she didn't know why she had to listen to his insults. She had never met her, but the information was true. Moreover, this incapable younger sister of the head of the family was nowhere to be seen even at the banquet, and the girl immediately realized that they were talking about her. If Arvid stood up for her, then it turns out that he also knows that she is his fiancée. The young man bowed and added that he hoped that her son's hope of becoming a royal knight would not come true. Goodbye. Our heroine noted that he was heading into the forest, so she needed to follow him before she lost him. But suddenly, a man shouted that he would go right away and teach this puppy good manners. Gloriosa realized that he could really hinder her now, so she decided to act. Therefore, on the table near the scandalous man, flowers immediately appeared that glowed brightly. The women began to panic that everything around them was burning, and now the same thing would happen to their dresses. Using this distraction, the little girl ran into the forest, thinking that the guy should not have gone far. Suddenly, she heard the voice of Magnus's escorts, who were discussing that this was because the head of the family was also very sensitive. After all, who could come to such a place? It was all very annoying, but they needed to look at everything quickly. Our heroine understood that if they went in her direction, then everything was lost. But she could not get caught by them in this way. What should she do? Suddenly, one of them said that he heard some sounds, as if something was moving behind the tree. The little girl understood that if they caught her here now, then all plans would come to an end, but she didn't even have anywhere to run. When the young people looked behind the tree, they saw no one there. They were very surprised, because they were sure that there was someone there. While they were discussing that it must have been a squirrel, it turned out that the little one quickly climbed up a tree. After they left, the little one noted to herself that the tree had saved her, because at the most tense moment, it had grabbed her and lifted her up. When asked why it helped her, the tree replied that it would always be on her side. The divine tree is a being that controls all the plants in the world, and she still has the power of the divine tree. The flower's abilities are minor, but with this, they will be useful, after which she asked if she could ask him for something. Let him help her move to another tree, because there is someone she must definitely meet. The tree obeyed and began to fulfill her request. Gloriosa was glad that she had no fear of heights. She completely missed Arvid while hiding from the guards. It will be difficult for her to find him alone in this huge forest. In this case, she will make the young man come to her himself. Suddenly, her nose started bleeding again because she had used her power too often. The little girl immediately explained to the tree, which became worried that everything was fine. It was all because she had abruptly used most of her magic. I noted to myself that if I look at the course of my past life, then Arvid most likely went into the forest to find the divine tree. Therefore, if he sees such a bright light in the middle of the forest thicket, he will definitely come to it. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, so the baby could not stay on her feet and began to fall down. Suddenly it happened that she fell right into the arms of a young man who asked what she was doing there because he thought that she was just a small squirrel. She had to be careful because just a little bit more, and he would decide that there was a hired killer there, and she could die at his hands. While Gloriosa was wondering why he needed a blindfold, the guy asked her if she was going to get off at all, or if she was going to continue sitting on his hands. Our heroine exclaimed that of course no, and then jumped off abruptly. Then the young man pointed his finger at the flower and asked if she had blossomed them here. The girl thought that he could not see anything because of his bandage, after which she replied that this flower was called Gloriosa, and that her name was the same, and silently she prayed that he would please say that he knew her. The guy immediately broke into a smile and stated that it turns out she is his bride. The little one didn't even have time to rejoice that he knew who she was, when the boys heard a cry that the young master should be somewhere here. These were her elder brother's soldiers, who had arrived here earlier than she had expected. The girl immediately grabbed his hand and said that he was seeing her for the first time, so her words might seem absurd to him, but she wanted to suggest something, after which she stunned him with the news that she wanted to propose a marriage contract to him. The little girl knows what he wants to do. The young man wants to destroy the divine gifts. She cannot explain everything, but she will definitely be useful to him. She can also tell him where the sacred tree is. Just 1 year. They will be married for 1 year, and she will share all the information she knows. Just let him please take her away from this family. After thinking for a while, Arvid asked if he could then take a closer look at those flowers. Our heroine was very nervous that the soldiers were too close, so she tried to quickly show him everything. Suddenly, the young man grabbed her hand and pulled her towards him, saying that he saw her. Gloriosa did not understand at all what was happening to him, but tears began to flow down the young man's cheeks. Suddenly, a cry was heard from the soldiers that they had found the young master and that everyone should head here. The little girl began to panic that they would now see her flowers and that she needed to get rid of them as soon as possible. Suddenly, the guy covered her with himself and told Ryozi to stay close to him from now on. The little one noted to herself that no one had ever addressed her like that. For some reason, her useless name now seemed so cute. As a result, they were finally caught. The little girl was worried whether everything would be okay with Arvid. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Magnus, who said that the young master Yolia was behaving disrespectfully in someone else's house. The road was specially paved with flower beds. How could Arvid get lost in Elvador's garden? He begins to doubt him. Of course, he understands that the young master is still at the age when people like to hide and seek, but this is somehow strange. Gloriosa didn't understand what this bloody atmosphere was. Despite his strength, Arvid was still a child. But suddenly, he asked if there was anyone who responded to the bark of a fox that had lost its wild nature and was now fawning on him. The young man got furious and started shouting what kind of nonsense he was talking about now. But the guy interrupted him and said that the reason he came to Elvador today was to find his bride, and she was this child. So from now on, she should be treated as a member of the Yolia family. He takes Gloriosa with him. Our heroine was also taken aback by this news. Of course, she herself asked to be taken away, but she didn't think it would be so abrupt. Magnus asked what other bride, because he had heard absolutely nothing about it. Arvid replied that yes, that's right. The head of Elvador is a young chick who just took over the position. There are probably still many things he doesn't know. The elder brother hissed that in any case, she had Elvador family blood in her, so he needed to think it over first, and only then make a decision. Our heroine began to get nervous that the atmosphere was getting tense. Was he really going to create a cannibal? As the situation worsened, the girl said that regarding the engagement evidence must first be found. The young man just smirked and told Magnus to treat her the same way he treated him. When the head of the Elvador family asked him what he had just said, Arvid noted that the head seemed to have trouble understanding, so he would repeat it again. Gloriosa was his fiancée, and her older brother has no right to decide where the girl should be. Is there something he still doesn't understand? Our heroine noted to herself that this was the same magic that she had seen before. On the very day that Elvador died, she knew that her fiancé had such an ability. Suddenly, a man appeared from the portal, asked for forgiveness, and said that he was not yet used to this, after which he greeted everyone. His name was Helbert, who is the chief butler of the Duke of Yolia, and he came to Elvador at the call of his master. The knights did not understand how this was even possible, since the journey from Yolia to Elvador takes 2 months. Magnus started getting angry again and asked what the matter was. Should it really be worth such a fuss? The man replied that of course let him look at this paper first. The young man explained that this was a confirmation of their mother's friendship. The butler added that if he looked closely, he would be convinced of the veracity of the words of the representative of the head of their family. It dawned on the little one that right now, Arvid had all the power in his family's hands, which is why he was acting like that with her older brother. It turns out that her mother foresaw all this and left the papers to Arvid, because otherwise Magnus would have already stolen them. After studying the paper, the guy said that he understood everything, but while they were still too young, it would be nice if they just saw each other once a year. Arvid asked who said that. The young man will marry her today. Let him prepare the documents immediately. Magnus flared up, jumped up from his seat, and shouted, "What nonsense is this?" He allows himself too much, but was immediately bound by Arvid's magic. Who stood up and asked, "What if he asked for his permission? There is no need to test his patience. There is no need to try to stop this. Ryozi will be with him, while the marriage documents are being prepared." After this, the butler took the little girl by the hand and said that it was time for them to go. The girl noted that Magnus lost. Finally, she will be able to say goodbye to this damned Elvor. She has been waiting for this moment for so long. Arvid's confidence extended to her as well, and the guy asked her if she was scared, since she was going to a place she had never been to before. When Gloriosa replied that she was not afraid at all, the young man noted that she was very brave, and the girl could not be more happy that she could now live a new life, the life of a human being, and not a tree. After some time, the girl thought that she still had abilities from the time when she was a sacred tree. She speaks all 7 languages fluently and remembers very well how each country was born and how its history was erased. Ideas that will shake the entire empire in the future, and promising talents from each family, and she also knows how to use all of this. But what Arvid is offering her now simply doesn't make any sense, and the young man asked what was going on, whether she had any questions. Looking at the cake in front of her, our heroine did not understand at all how to eat it. If she did something wrong, she would ruin this whole beautiful form. Even before her reincarnation, she had never eaten such wonderful food, so she replied that she couldn't eat it. The guy asked why, because he thought she was hungry. Gloriosa explained that she doesn't know how to eat such a luxurious food, and that this cake isn't even hard. She feels like she could break it even with a knife. Suddenly, her stomach began to rumble, treacherously, loudly. The little girl was finally convinced that she had become a human, because when she was a tree, she didn't even know what hunger was. The young man told her to sit closer to him so that he could feed her and show her how to cut it, and in exchange the girl would bloom the flower one more time. When the little one immediately fulfilled his request, the boy said that it was very good. Thanks to her, he could see perfectly. Gloriosa asked whether her flower illuminated the entire space in front of him, and the young man replied that it apparently did. Our heroine smiled and said that she was very glad that she could be useful to him. After all, everything that has no value is thrown away, and she does not want him to throw her away. The young man silently handed her a piece of cake, and the girl objected that if he told her how to do it, she could eat it herself. But Arvid wanted to feed her, so he asked her to eat quickly, because his hand was already tired. After eating a piece, the little girl admired how delicious it was. It felt like it was made from angel wings and clouds. The young man was amused by this, and said that his bride was expressive in her expressions. Gloriosa noted to herself that they were still in Elvordor's castle, but just being around him made her feel very calm. Their idyll was interrupted by the voice of the butler, who announced that he had brought the marriage documents prepared by Elvor. Then they began to read what was written there, namely that a wedding of the appropriate level between the two families would take place after reaching adulthood. If after this Gloriosa wishes to divorce, then so it will be also. If she does not become the legal owner of Yultecha, then the marriage will become invalid. The little one noted to herself that in any case, he had set such conditions, not knowing that this was an arranged marriage for 1 year. But she didn't even think that Magnus would let her go so easily. Also, a little earlier during their conversation, it seemed to her that Arvid whispered something else in his ear, whether it was a secret that could deal a fatal blow to Magnus. She was a sacred tree, but she didn't even know about this information. She was very curious, but now everything is fine. Anyway, the guy said that it was possible to sign it. For now, it was enough for her that she and the young man would soon be able to leave Elvor together. Our heroine was incredibly happy that she would soon be able to go to Yultecha. Sometime later, when they arrived at the estate, the butler said that he did not know that he would bring her here immediately. Even if she is his fiancée, isn't it customary to meet her once a year? And besides, he knows very well how cunning the head of the Elvor family is. Magnus is a shameless man who aims at the imperial power, and is especially loved by the regent for his appearance. In addition, due to their disgusting custom of using people as food, they have a bad reputation in the imperial castle. The next head of the Yultetia family will soon be determined, but who would have thought that at such an important time, Arvid would bring the man's younger sister into the house? He dares to ask why the guy made such a hasty decision. The young man told him to take this flower in his hands and bring it right to his face. When the man carefully did what he was told, the young gentleman reported that he could see him perfectly well. It turns out that the butler had been growing his mustache for a long time. Helbert could not believe that he could actually see despite the curse. In his will, the first emperor wrote that the entire Yultetia family would be cursed because of this. All the children of this dynasty suffered, and especially Arvid. He has 4 curses. Since then, he has lost his sight because of his damaged body. He vomits blood, and all living beings are afraid of him. And lastly, since birth, he has been deprived of a certain part of emotions. Of course, even if he cannot see anything in front of him, he is able to see the truth in the stars and space. And thanks to his developed senses, he can live an ordinary life using only 1 cane. But there are things in the world that are much more beautiful if you see them with your own eyes. Has this really become possible for the owner? Arvid added that a miracle had happened to him. If it had not been for this miracle, he would have suspected that bringing this child closer to him was Magnus's plan. But for some reason, this little girl gives him sight. Miracles cannot be controlled, so he had no choice but to believe. Now he sees only what is next to the flower. However, at least he can see something. The butler burst into tears and picked up that he is absolutely right. The young man continued that he needed to make sure that all the conditions necessary for a comfortable life for his young wife were met. Power always has a price, and he had to pay the appropriate price for this flower. Also, let him be careful that no one treats her as a spy. The guy trusts her. If they do not want to challenge him, then they will also have to trust her. The butler bowed and said that he remembered his words, after which he added that perhaps the previous head of the family knew that everything would happen this way. Arvid objected that, on the contrary, it was possible that Gloriosa's mother had suggested this to his mother. On the other hand, it was questionable why she had decided to marry her to a man with so many curses. But whatever the reason, he is not going to let this child go, because the girl is not even afraid of him. She is incredibly special. The man noted to himself that it had been so long since he had last seen a smile on the young master's face, and that this rare ability to bloom flowers could bring about changes in Yultetia. After some time, the guy noticed that his wife slept a lot. Perhaps he should have listened to the butler when he wanted to take her to the bedroom. It's all just amazing. He brought his wife back to him from where he was going to break off the engagement. When she sleeps, she is completely different from what she was before. The girl was trembling with fear, but there was determination in her voice, and golden light was pouring from all sides. Her eyes are like Venus, and her eyelashes are like the Milky Way. Her face was the first he saw since his birth. He really wanted her to wake up soon and show him her eyes again. Sometimes she looks so happy for him. These are special moments. Suddenly, the current head of Yultetia entered the room and asked why he didn't soften his expression, because if anyone saw him, they would think he had the plague. When the boy replied that it didn't matter, the man muttered thoughtfully that he couldn't remember there being a guest bedroom here. As far as he could remember, there hadn't been one some time ago. The young man replied that he would allow her to stay in his room for now, so there was no need to interfere in this matter. This child is his person, so there is no need to interfere. Lem noted his menacing growl and said that he shouldn't behave like that with him because he just came to look at the child, who could become the next head of the family. Given her fragile frame, she should be handled with care. Arvid reminded that one should not pester her. The man stated that she had clearly sunk into his soul. Then he would treat her as a daughter-in-law, even if it was temporary, but he could not tell him what to do, even though she was his father. On the way, Lem thought about how Gloriosa had shown her hidden claws to follow the news he sent his subordinates. To each family, he never thought he would hear such an interesting story. One day, she suddenly recruited all the maids and forced them to pour soup on the first mistress's son, and also revealed the secret of this child. Perhaps she is just right for this snake pit. Things are taking an interesting turn. Since she is his daughter-in-law, he should treat her well and take care of her. Then the man came to the conclusion that it was necessary to present her with the eggs of the Sea Queen. The next morning, the little girl was afraid to open her eyes because she was worried that her departure from Elvor might be a dream. But opening her eyes a little, she saw a young man in front of her, who asked how long she was going to pretend to be asleep. Let her open her eyes already, because she needs to get up and have breakfast. She would like to do this together. When the little girl fell back onto the pillow, the guy stated that she still felt unwell, after which he asked if she would be able to walk to the dining room. If Gloriosa had not yet rested enough, he would ask for food to be brought to the room, but the girl would object that she could and wanted to go. The young man replied that okay. Then they would call the doctor after she ate the baby, thanked him for his concern. Arvid replied that it was a matter of course. Now that she was awake, he would introduce her to the maids who would serve her. These girls will make sure that Elvor feels comfortable in this estate. Now it was time for him to go, and she should take her time while she got ready. Moving the screen towards her, Linda and Anne said that they were very honored to meet the little lady. Phoebe and Brill added that they would be happy to serve her from today on. The baby was grateful, but did she really need so many people? The peculiarity of Hawaiian is that a representative of this kind is clean and fragrant, even without taking a bath. The girls admired that she was simply beautiful. How could one be so beautiful? Her hair was like a sunset, and this dress would suit her very well. Our heroine did not understand why they were behaving this way, after which she said that she was also pleased to meet them, but she was not little, she would soon be 14. The maids were horrified because they thought that she was no more than 9 because she had such a small body. At first, the little one didn't understand why they had gotten her age so wrong, although she grew up in a family where she couldn't eat properly, so her growth was very slow. Then they brought a mirror to her and said that they were finished. Did she want to look at herself? Let her say if she feels uncomfortable. But the girl replied that she liked everything very much. Since these clothes were prepared especially for her, she decided that she should go and thank them. It was the first day in a new place, the first day of a new life, that she had dreamed of so much an opportunity that she had caught with her own hands, so she would never let it go. The baby really won't suffer anymore. That's all she thought about as she walked. But when she entered the dining room, she could not understand why there was such a tense atmosphere around. A few hours ago, the maids were discussing that the master's bride had arrived, but it was somehow too sudden. One of them exclaimed, "What kind of girl must this be, so that this terrible man could marry her in one day?" And then they even wondered if this might be a kidnapping. After this, the thought came to their minds that she was as scary as Arvid. They say she came from the East. Does anyone know anything about Eastern cuisine? What if she doesn't like Southern food? I just want to run away right now. The maid immediately stuttered and said that she would tell her about today's menu, namely soup with stewed scallops and parsley marinated tomatoes, with cheese and lamb steak with potatoes. While the little girl was getting ready to try it, the maids prayed that she would like it. But in fact, they had nothing to worry about at all, because the little one immediately said that it was delightful. The girls immediately breathed a sigh of relief and began to think that perhaps she was not as scary as they thought. When the guy offered her to try a steak, the maids noted that even the master became softer next to her. They immediately wanted the girl to stay with them forever and become their mistress. They were confident that this little girl would be able to re-educate their young master. After some time, our heroine thought that it was very tasty, although she felt awkward from these strange looks. When the young man asked her if she liked everything, Gloriosa replied that it was a real heavenly banquet. She noted to herself that she needed to be careful because she had been hungry for a long time, and she could get sick, but she was fine. It must be because she had put in a lot of effort to get here. Elvor must definitely repay for such a luxurious table, after which she asked what she could do for Arvid, something that could help Yultisia. The guy replied that what she should do at the moment is to restore her health. When the girl objected that she didn't quite mean it that way, the young man retorted that she should absolutely. Therefore, Gloriosa answered that good, and asked what he would do. Then the young man answered that he had to work. It was time to take care of the documents. When asked if she could watch too, the guy replied that she would probably be bored, but if she wanted to, then fine. After which, he ordered the butler to make room for the girl in his office. When they went out into the corridor, the little girl extended her hand to him and suggested that they hold hands. She worries that he is uncomfortable when walking, but she really wants to do something for him. Then she realized what she had just said. After all, this was his house. What inconvenience could there be? Moreover, how could she help him when she didn't know the interior layout? But the young man took her hand, thanked her for her help, and added that he appreciated it very much. After which, he suggested taking a walk in the garden, while Helbert prepared a place for her. The girl noted to herself that despite the fact that Arvid could laugh at her in this situation, he took her hand. This guy is very kind. The young man said that the garden was in that direction. It could not be compared with the garden in the east, but he hoped that she would like it. The little one exclaimed that she was sure that it was no less beautiful. But when they went outside, our heroine saw that it was completely destroyed and withered. The young man said that they say that it is even better there at night, although he had never been there at such a time. The little girl noted to herself that she definitely didn't know anything about the garden. Under no circumstances should she plant flowers here. Why had things reached such a point? Then she smelled a salty and slightly fishy smell. It was the smell of the sea. Maybe they watered the plants with water from it. The young man asked why she had become quiet. Perhaps some problems had arisen. But the little one replied that there were none. It was just so beautiful in the garden, so she was walking around admiring it. The guy replied that she could look around calmly, because now it was her home. Our heroine asked for forgiveness, and asked if she could take care of this garden for a little while. Realizing that she was becoming emotional, Arvid said that if her body was fully restored, then she could do whatever she wanted. Therefore you cannot worry and cry in this place, no one will see it. The little girl had tears running down her cheeks, and she couldn't calm down apparently, because the guy spoiled her with his kindness. In this place, Gloriosa wants to revive both the garden and her life. After some time, the butler announced that this time he had brought him a cake, but the young man told him to give it to the bride. The little girl thanked him for the cake, and noted to herself that she couldn't even open her eyes, she had cried so much. Who knew that they would prepare such a place for her? Now I feel somehow awkward, won't it become an obstacle to her work? And in general, it seems they went a little overboard with the preparations. There were flower decorations, a pillow, and a dessert. After which she asked him if it didn't bother him. After all, it was his office. The young man replied that it didn't bother him at all. In any case, it would belong to her someday. She can look through all the documents, he will say, to bring documents with regular letters, in addition to documents with the alphabet for the blind. The butler reported that while they were eating, news came from the regent that the imperial family hoped that they would share this joy with them, and congratulated them on such a significant event as a wedding. An order was also written that it was necessary to appear together at the palace to greet them. It was also said that if they come, then from now on, it will be possible not to attend the celebration of the Day of Conquest 3 times. On the Day of Conquest, the head of the duchy and the heir from each family must appear at the imperial palace once a year. This is done in order to swear allegiance and bend the knee before the emperor. After the Day of Conquest, the father of his many wives always went to her mother, so she remembered it. At the moment, the Galaxios Empire is ruled by a young emperor, but he cannot exercise power as he pleases. In fact, power is held in the hands of the emperor's regent. It is noteworthy that the regent and the former empress were sisters. The former emperor married all the sisters from the same family. At this point, our heroine's older brother and the regent have been lovers for a long time. In the future, he will commit atrocities relying on her power. This must be stopped. Privatization of public roads within the empire, xenophobia, exploitation of orphans' labor under the guise of charity. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the butler, who said that the next problem was the autonomous region of Hooks. The oasis had dried up, and they could not understand the reason for the 3rd month. The guy muttered that this was a problem. If the area couldn't function, this transport would stop running in the desert. When our heroine asked if they were talking about the Hux oasis, the guy replied that everything was correct, a piece of wood found nearby, and an inscription in an ancient language were all the clues they had. The little one noted to herself that she knew about this event, one of Magnus's atrocities, the plan for drought and flood. Then she said that she wanted to look at this document because she thought that she could help in this matter. This area is considered an autonomous region and is located in the desert, which is located in the southern part of the empire, in close proximity to the lands of Yoltetia, but has no owner. The locals maintain a religion and lifestyle that are unique to this place. In terms of their mentality, these people are quite self-confident. Therefore, they tried to solve the problem themselves, but they failed and did not inform Yoltetia. After studying the documents, the little one reported that the reason for the drought is simple. It's all because of forget-me-not. Let her order that a detective be hired and find out a couple of things. Does forget-me-not grow near the oasis? And if so, is there a person who matches the description she gives? The butler read that she had given the name Crossel Elvador, who was 22 years old, and that the forget-me-not flower had the ability to secrete and absorb water. Shiny sea wave-like blue hair, pale skin, drooping bangs covering one eye on one side. This person is a close associate of Magnus the Florist, who has the strongest water ability. Most likely, he is hiding somewhere in the village. We need to move as carefully as possible. The guy asked if she could explain the reason. Gloriosa answered, because he is a very dangerous guy. You can't predict what will come into his head. Helbert noted to himself that it was true that flower growers had unique abilities. The abilities of such a famous person as Magnus were known to everyone, but the abilities of other flower growers were hidden by a veil of secrecy. And this girl just gave away such a valuable secret for free. The little girl continued that he has an aversion to people and has no moral values, but even so he has outstanding powers, so his older brother likes to work with him. Using it, Magnus prepares his plan called Drought and Flood. The first point of the plan is an oasis in the village. The water absorbed in that place will be poured out in another area, and both areas will suffer greatly. Arvid added that in every region, droughts and floods are rising. With such a statement, he is going to drive the empire into a bad year and raise the prices of food exports from Elvador. Isn't that right? It is clear why her elder brother has set his sights on this village. He is aiming to own neutral land. Even if famine comes, they will not be able to receive support and protection from the duchy, nor will they be able to purchase expensive food, which will incur huge interest rates. And since they have a tendency to be independent, they will let you know about it late. It looks like cruel usury. Then the young man asked if it was okay that our heroine told him about this. When the little one sighed heavily and said that she told him she knew a lot and wanted to help, the guy jumped up to her and noted that she had a fever. You can't leave your body without attention. He should have guessed faster, after which he ordered the butler to call a doctor. But the little girl objected that she was just a little tired. The young man already thanked her for her help and said that she had helped him a lot. He would definitely grab Crossel so as not to disappoint her. Gloriosa noted to herself that if she captured him now, she would be able to stop the entire plan for drought and flooding. There would be no second chance. Then Arvid put his hand to her forehead, and the girl thought that she was so cold, if only this moment could last forever. After some time, when the boys put her to bed, the butler noted that she was truly an amazing person. She knows so much information, also has the ability to evaluate, assume, and relate each event. Based on the situation, the baby does not look her age at all. The guy replied that yes, she had been a great help to them today, after which he suddenly began to be choked by a coughing fit. After using the handkerchief, Arvid saw that there was blood on it and muttered that time was running out. He noted to himself that he might have to hand over the seal faster than he thought, but he was sure that she could handle it. The woman becoming the head of the family is a system that operates only in the Yulticha family. Since ancient times, only one single son is born in their dynasty. The son who bears the Bayan curse was deprived of the right to inherit the position of head of the house from birth because of the first emperor. Thus, they found a way out of the situation. To marry from childhood, the bride who will become his partner from an early age must live in the duchy and take lessons from the successor. There are 2 candidates in total. The first one was chosen personally by the Yulticha family. The second is chosen by none other than the imperial family. For these candidates, the family prepares several tasks and brings them to the temple. The guardian spirit of Yulticha chooses the tests himself. Thus, after conducting all the necessary tests, the guardian spirit chooses one girl, and as proof that she has become the head of the family, gives her a diadem. The stone inserted into the tiara reacts only to its owner, and the color changes depending on who wears it. The girl chosen in this way will carry the time of Yulticha on her shoulders. Under normal circumstances, Arvid's mother would have been responsible for choosing a successor. Gloriosa could learn a lot from her as a candidate for successor, however, if everything went according to plan. When the boy began to drive away useless thoughts, a small dragon appeared, and he stated that this must be a message from his father. The creature reported that he had found a clutch of sea queen eggs. She had laid the desired eggs deep under the water. Of course, she is in egg-laying season now, so she is very sensitive. It will take him some time to return. Let them hold out for another 10 days. Lem hopes that the eggs will be to the baby's taste. The butler exclaimed how he found the clutch in time. One of the top 3 delicacies in the world, the sea queen is very ferocious during the egg-laying period. Due to the difficulty of obtaining eggs, the eggs are sold for gold equal in weight to the egg. The boy replied that it had been a long time since his father had done anything useful, and that it would be necessary to send a little regent. He then called his assistant to him and asked how things were going in Elvor. Cullen reported that there was a fire, but no damage. However, since there are so many wooden buildings in the east, quite a lot of storage barns have been lost. The young man noted to himself as expected from the Gloriosa fireflower. Despite everything burning so brightly, this power was not capable of burning anything or causing pain. But he is different, so he feels that this is not enough, and earlier ordered the burning of Elvador's mansion. The subordinate added that, as he expected, Magnus seemed to be rather dismissive of his younger sister. Not only was she accused and criticized for trifles, but the lady was also not properly looked after and was treated with contempt by everyone. Arvid muttered that now it was clear why she still looked like a 9-year-old child. This information completely infuriated the butler, and he screamed at how one could be so evil and how they dared to torture a small child. The young man said that first he needed to calm down because he even had horns. Helbert came to his senses and asked for forgiveness. As he knows this is a characteristic feature of minotaurs, it was difficult for him to contain his anger. The young man replied that he understood him perfectly well, so he also couldn't leave everything like that, after which he asked what business Magnus was working on at the moment, let him get rid of all the small fish. The man replied that he understood that the little girl's elder brother was doing his best to use private property to pave the way. The gentleman replied that it was true that he could not leave this arrogant fellow alone, even if he failed. Then he snapped his fingers, and many shadows appeared around the assistant, after which he added that they did not realize the value of Gloriosa, and behaved with her in such a way they will have to be made to pay for it. Let them go to the scene of the crime and kill everyone who bears the name Elvador. The butler fully supported this idea and shouted that it was necessary to get rid of them. Arvid added that this should be kept a secret from his fiancée. The girl would not be able to cope with this. It might seem quite cruel to her. The man replied that, okay, but they should talk to the lady about something else. Her rival is none other than the regent's niece, he means Miss Eyre Pick. The next day, when our heroine woke up, she wondered when she had managed to fall asleep at all. Her future husband told her that she had been examined by a doctor for some time. Then the girl watched with interest as the young man worked. Most likely somewhere at this point, she fell asleep. It probably wasn't easy to move her here. Through her sleep, she heard the guy say that the decision had already been made anyway, and it seemed like it was something sweet. Or maybe it was a dream the girl could not fully understand, as she was half asleep. Then she noted that, thanks to the kind word, she feels cheerful, so she needs to quickly plan further actions, namely to draw up a plan to destroy his older brother, whose main activity at the moment is the privatization of public roads. After the road is completed, she will use her power to block other roads with bushes and force him to use only her roads. Moreover, public roads are also the object of the regent, because her object is to be able to send soldiers to each of the families at any time to carry out military policy. The plan to combat drought and floods is to raise funds for the construction of this public road. Of course, if Crossel were captured, it could prevent both, but capturing him would be like touching the regent. It is necessary to tell Arvid about this and about some other events. First, the regent's charitable work to change his image. He will build an orphanage in Elvador, which will be run by Magnus, but this is nothing more than a ploy to use child labor in the granaries. And also the enslavement of other races. The elves were sold simply as decoration, and the minotaurs were used as gladiators. The elder brother was involved in all these atrocities. Maybe that's why she came back in time. From now on, the baby should remember only one thing: revenge. First of all, she will completely destroy her elder brother and stop his evil deeds. Then, if possible, try to lift the curse from Yulticha. But to do this, at least you need to become the head of this family. After which she realized that although her self-esteem had increased a little, she still understood that she was not suitable for this position. Suddenly, a maid appeared in the room and asked her if she had slept well, since she had been working hard on something since early morning. When the girl replied that everything was fine, the maid said that it was time to change then. Then they started showing her a bunch of different dresses and jewelry, and saying that they would look perfect on her. The little one thought that this was a bit too much, But every time they do this, they look very happy. After a short period of time, Gloriosa was ready, and the girls admired how beautiful she was. After which, the girl asked if she would like to see the mansion before breakfast. The girl replied that she would actually like to go to the library. The maid exclaimed that she was taking her there, and began to explain that this was the main house in which she was staying, and that there were separate houses not far from here. There is a desert behind the mansion, so you shouldn't go outside alone, as it is dangerous on the other side. There is a sea with a cliff, so let her be careful. Our heroine noted to herself that the sea and the desert in one place, this is a truly strange place. The maid added that the weather was sunny today, so she could go running in the garden. The little one thought to herself that she had never run around the garden before, and with such endurance, she would be found dead with a broken nose, so she decided to abstain. Brill carefully added that there are usually two candidates for the position of head of the family, but they are completely on her side. When the lady is around Arvid, he becomes really soft and kind. The lady is the only one who can do this, so she hopes that the girl will become the head, and everything will continue in the same spirit. When the little girl objected that he seemed like a kind person, the girl turned pale and said that this was not at all true. Gloriosa noted to herself that nevertheless she was still pleased to hear it. She was a little depressed that someone like her had to compete with Ayur. Besides, she is a member of the imperial family. It is only fair that she should have at least some advantage. Lem suddenly appeared abruptly, picked her up in his arms, and exclaimed that, as he thought, she was too light. While the little girl was still realizing that this was none other than her fiancé's father, the man asked why she was so light as a feather, and whether she was eating at all. After some time, the man asked for forgiveness, as he was not accustomed to Eastern etiquette. Our heroine replied that in the South, it is generally difficult to meet a lady like her. Lem noted that she looked more like a child who was about to become emaciated. The little girl objected that she was already 13, so she could be considered a lady. After which, she looked at the table and asked whether she needed to eat it all since she was already full. The man replied that, yes, it was a bet. If she ate it all, he would admit that the girl was a lady, after which they began to put food on her plate again. The girl asked him if he really liked it so much. When she eats well, the current head of the family replied that of course he did. She is going to live in his house, and even claims to be the head of the family. He has no choice but to feed her well. Gloriosa noted that she almost fainted from shock a little earlier, but he does not seem as bad as she expected. After which she said that she had one question. The man replied that she could ask whatever she wanted. Why does the man think that she will become the head? And what about the second contender? Lem answered that this is a very sensitive issue. First of all, his son values her very much. The current head of the family has never seen this little boy do anything for others. It's like seeing your mother the first person in your life, and his son saw her, so it's clear that this is something special. The baby shouldn't have been so obviously happy about this, but she was just happy. Lem added that, moreover, he had no intention of choosing the candidate nominated by the regent, so it was quite clear who would become the head. Our heroine said that she was a bad child, who was happy to hear this. Instead of sympathizing with Arvid's pain, she first felt worried maybe something was wrong with her. Her fiancé's father objected that there was no such thing as a bad child, and it was the same with her. In addition, the test evaluates the ability to make decisions and get out of a crisis. While on the edge in this regard, she must cope with everything well. So of course the keeper will choose her, and someday this will become her dignity. Then the little girl carefully asked if anyone at the estate looked after the garden. The man replied that as far as he remembered, Helbert was the one doing this. He is their butler and assistant and gardener, in general. He is responsible for everything. The little one was surprised to herself that they really don't have any system. When Gloriosa said that she would like to take this responsibility upon herself, there was a knock at the door, and someone asked if he could come in. Our heroine immediately recognized the young man by his voice, and was surprised why he was knocking on the door of his house. The father noted that he was just in time. It seemed that this little girl wanted to take care of the garden. There is no need to be upset that she told him about this. He knows that inside the sun is burning, even though he pretends to be cold-blooded. Arvid objected that this never happened. There is no need to be mistaken. Then the man stood up and said that if he continued listening to this, his goosebumps would not go away, so they had better go. The girl laughed and noted to herself that it was quite cute, and the boy asked if her father had bothered her in any way. Our heroine replied that no, he simply fed her very tasty food. And as for the garden, as she already said last time, she wants to gradually improve it. The young man replied that no problem, he was completely at her disposal, but she could only take care of him after he had fully recovered. The baby objected that she was already healthy, but the guy said that the doctor thought differently. She needed to eat more, gain weight to become stronger. Gloriosa noted to herself that he often grumbled, but she felt that it was said out of concern and worry for her. Then the young man took her hand and said that since she had already eaten, it was time to take her medicine. A few days later, the man remarked that she must be sad, that she could not immediately take up the garden. The little girl replied that his son's judgment was correct, so she had no other choice. Lem replied that okay, instead, he would show her one good place, let her follow him. After some time when they passed through the forest, the man stopped abruptly and said that it was here. When our heroine looked straight ahead, she was completely delighted. It was an orchard. The man explained that the garden looks the same, but everything will be different here because everything has been redone. When the little girl looked closely at the sign, she saw that it said Gloriosa Fruit Garden. Therefore, she was stunned and asked if this place was made especially for her. Lem replied that yes, every child should have their own secret place. The little one said that she had never received a better gift than this. Thank you very much for that. But the father objected that there was no need to thank him for this, since his son had organized everything. The little girl couldn't believe that all this was done especially for her. She was incredibly happy that she came to Yoltisha. The current head of the clan added that this place is usually called the Land of Snakes. The girl asked why this name. Man, that this is something like a nickname, just as Magnus is called a fox. The Yoltisha family are called snakes. The little girl said that it was a bit strange. Snakes are usually used for bad purposes, aren't they? But Arvid and her father were very kind to her. She noted to herself that the trees also greeted her very kindly and said that they were glad to meet her. Lem added that there was something else he had to show her. Let him follow her. Our heroine thought to herself that no matter what anyone says, she only believes in what she herself has seen and experienced, and these guys, whom she met personally, are very friendly and warm people. After a short period of time, he brought her to the hut and informed her that it also belonged to her. Gloriosa was absolutely delighted, and the man said that she could decorate it and play with it as she wanted. Then, he added that he was very glad that she liked it so much, but it was time for him to go and she should have a good time here. For some reason, the little one had the feeling that she had become even closer to him today. Is it normal to think that there is a little space for her in Yoltisha? After some time, the doctor said that she seemed to be feeling much better than at the first examination. When asked if she could already start working in the garden, the doctor replied that it would be better to wait a couple more weeks. Now let him take today's dose of medicine. Gloriosa thought to herself that the medicine was so bitter and tasteless she would never in her life put something like that in her mouth if it were not necessary. The young man immediately handed her a candy and said that she could eat it after taking her medicine. Still, the young man is very glad that she now looks more or less healthy. Nessa said that it was time for him to go. It would be helpful if she took short walks more often. The guy took note of this and immediately asked why they didn't go out and take a little walk. Our heroine objected that it was raining there. Arvid replied that days like this have a certain atmosphere. There is one place he wants to show her. But if she wants to rest indoors, she won't object. But the little girl exclaimed that she could go. The guy asked if she was really that happy. The girl replied that yes, it had been a long time since she last spent time with him. The young man told her to take his arm so that he could lead her into the garden. This embarrassed the little one a little, but she couldn't say that she didn't like it. From the side, the voices of the maids were heard, who said that they had brought her a raincoat and an umbrella because she said that she was going for a walk. When the girl thanked them and asked why they took only one umbrella with them, since they were going for a walk together, the maid replied that there was a reason for everything, so that she could have a good time. After they went outside, the young gentleman said that before they went for a walk, he had news for her. Not long ago, they managed to get on the trail of Crossel Elvor. He hasn't been caught yet, but he will be soon, because Cullen knows his business very well. At the moment, his subordinate is tracking Crossel in the village. The little girl noted to herself that it seemed like he was doing a lot for Arvid, like a weight off her shoulders, because she was worried about this issue. Suddenly, the young man pressed her to himself and told her to come closer because she would get wet. When they began to walk too close, the little one understood what the maid meant when she said that everything has a reason. The guy said he thought she would like the coast near her house. It wasn't raining that much, so there shouldn't be any problems. There was just one view that could only be seen at this time of year. Then he brought her closer to the cliff and told her to look down. This phenomenon is called the dragon's nest. They say that the dragon is preparing to rise into the sky. The girl exclaimed that it was simply incredible, and the young man asked her to be careful as it was easy to fall. Arvid knew she would like it because he had never seen anything like it himself. Gloriosa was a little upset that he couldn't see anything because of the curse, but it would be nice if they could see this scenery together. Maybe she can do something now because she has been secretly training to grow a flower, and now she can make two buds at the same time. But what she is going to do is, of course, much larger in scale, after which she said that this is her gift to him. While the guy didn't understand what was happening, the girl thought that for some reason, right now, she felt confident that she could do it. After which she illuminated everything around with flowers, and the young man was able to see the sea as well as the dragon's nest. Our heroine had a great desire to show Arvid what she saw herself. This was her only desire. She put her whole soul into it, a level far from those two buds that she grows at night, an abnormal increase in level. The fact that she managed to pull this off meant that she liked the guy incredibly. After some time, the guy thought about how, for the first time in his life, he saw a forest trees stretched out in a row after the burning mansion, and this time a spinning whirlpool. It's just amazing Gloriosa shows him magnificent views every time. Until now, to find something beautiful, he had to look up at the sky. But thanks to this girl, he realized that there are beautiful things on earth too. After which he decided that he should give her a gift, and then he called his servant to him. The first question was how the work on the presentation of public roads is going. The otherworldly being reported that the processing was complete, everything was completely ready. As for Crossel Elvor, his arrest also ended successfully. Sometime later, the maids admired how beautiful the little girl was. Her hair pulled back looked especially good. The girl asked them not to embarrass her. After all, she was already so deeply imbued with feelings for them that it was hard for her to think that they would ever have to part. The maids exclaimed, "What was she even talking about?" The baby replied that soon another candidate for head of the family would come, then perhaps one of them would go over to her side. The girls immediately began to lament that this was simply impossible. They would always take care of her. They would try their best to make her the official head of the family. In addition, the other candidate will have her own servants, with whom she will come from the capital. She will definitely bring 4 maids they will not lose under any circumstances. With her arrival at the mansion, it was as if spring had come again. Not only the lord, but his lordship, the duke, became kinder, and everyone took care of her with all sincerity. Our heroine noted to herself that everyone was afraid of the local hosts. The Yolia that she saw were different from those that others saw. Suddenly, the butler appeared and said that he needed to talk to Gloriosa. There is progress on the case for which she provided information, so the owner asked to take her to the outbuilding. The little girl immediately understood what was being talked about. It looked like that man had finally been caught. Meanwhile, Crossel was shouting how they even found him. Was this all Gloriosa's doing? What kind of story did this girl tell them? How dare she forget the mercy of her older brother? What a traitor. Soon Mr. Magnus will come to save him, and there will be no trace left of them. Arvid sat down opposite him and hissed that enough was enough. He couldn't listen to this anymore. It seemed that a plug was needed here, after which a snake appeared in the young man's mouth. After which the young man stated that although they were similar monsters to him, they had different classes. As soon as the young master heard someone coming, he immediately tied the snake into a bow to make it look cute. Then he said that he should thank him, because now he looked too menacing to meet the little girl. Upon seeing her so-called relative, the little one stated that she had managed to catch him. The guy replied that it was all thanks to her. Now all that was left was to destroy her older brother's plans. Crossel couldn't believe that this was really a girl who had spent her life in oppression. Did she really think that she had made the right decision by betraying her master? Magnus feeds pathetic people like her to the man-eating flower. Our heroine only glanced at him and said one phrase that he needed to be gotten rid of. They must break the wings of her older brother. This man is a scarecrow who can do nothing alone. In order to hide his incompetence, he uses and deceives other people. Crocelle was so stupidly caught and became useless. She noted to herself that even villains have the most sincere admirers. The young man always wanted to prove his usefulness, so for the first time, Magnus gave him a huge role. This is his weak point. It was not for nothing that she mentioned the word useful, because for Crossel it is like a red rag to a bull. Then she put her hand on his shoulder and said that thank you for being useful to her. Thanks to him, she managed to hide the truth and the lies of her information. From now on, she is going to put more and more pressure on Magnus's throat, bringing him to clean water. It is then that you'll teach his love will come, and he will become the head of their family. My heartfelt thanks to him for this. Suddenly, the young man managed to get rid of the bandage on his face, and he began to call for water, screaming for her to die. Our heroine's mother's words immediately floated into her head, telling her that she needed to remember that the more pain they suffered, the stronger they became when they were born Elvor. When the girl found herself under a powerful stream of water, the guy laughed loudly and shouted for her to finally die. But the fun didn't last long, as it turned out that the little girl had managed to put up a flower protection in front of herself. Gloriosa noted that she deliberately got into this situation. She does not want to be satisfied with just a couple of blossoming flowers inside her. There is dormant and ancient power that she accepted when she was a sacred tree. This power is capable of controlling all the plants in the world. Then she noticed that the future groom was trying to open space, apparently wanting to help her. But the young man should not suffer either, because she managed to put a barrier on him. She is very grateful for the attempt to help her, but the time has not yet come. Crossel began to get very angry that this was not working, and saying that she was an arrogant girl. He decided to try something else, after which a huge wave appeared above our heroine's barrier, which was about to rush towards her. The little one didn't expect that he was still able to splash out water in such volumes, but he would never be able to cope with her flower anyway. The young man again began to rejoice in advance that he had managed to win after all. But he was deeply mistaken, because right in front of him, a huge tree began to grow from under the ground. When the roots started to reach towards him, the guy shouted that he shouldn't come near him, just not like that. After such a huge amount of energy that Gloriosa spent, she almost immediately lost consciousness. The young man thought that if the space had opened up a little later, a big disaster would have occurred, since it would take a long time to move all these trees at once. I wonder what has become of that young man now, whether he is even alive. When Gloriosa opened her eyes a little, the guy immediately started asking if she could hear him. The girl heard him, but she didn't even have the strength to speak. She felt as if something had opened inside her, after which she whispered that it was not necessary. The young man did not understand what exactly, but our heroine could only whisper one more word: "Forgive," and then immediately switched off again. The young man kissed her head tenderly and said that now she could rest. While Gloriosa was unconscious, she began to dream that she found herself in a forest. Then she realized that this was an unusual forest. This was her inner world, the place where the sacred tree connected with its essence. The sacred tree of Elvor is a condensation of nature, and for many years she tried not to be swallowed up by this huge fauna, so the sacred tree became her, and she became the sacred tree. But what will happen if suddenly her flower blooms right now? The vast field in this space is filled with her flowers. Now she can say with confidence that this place is now in her possession. The power of the sacred tree and the power of the vine clan have completely become hers. If she uses this power, she can become the head of the family. Suddenly, she began to hear someone's voice calling her by name, and she could not understand who it was. After this, she came to her senses and realized that she was in her room. She was very thirsty. Next to her bed, she saw a young man who told her to drink first, and then they would talk. Our heroine immediately realized that in her dream, she heard the voices of Arvid, who called her by name. Then the young man asked what it was all about, why she did something so reckless, why she didn't let him help in any way. The little one noted to herself that she knew that he wouldn't forget this so easily, after which she replied that this was done in order to save him, because the flower hurts her as a sorceress. Therefore, she could not enter the protective barrier that he was in. If she had entered, she would have simply burned up, so she decided to protect him. The guy noted that it seemed like the truth, but he was sure that she was hiding something. The girl asked to clarify what Arvid meant. The young man explained that the constellation of Libra is now shining in the sky. It symbolizes the truth. This means that she is still hiding something, since the constellation of Scorpio reacts to her. Then she was trying to overcome the border between life and death. Therefore, there is no need to lie to him. Let him tell the truth. The little girl noted to herself that apparently this is his ability. To some extent she knew about it. She saw it in person for the first time. The young man asked her once again to tell the truth, because there should be no omissions or secrets between spouses. The little girl was very surprised that he said exactly that she never thought that something like that would come out of his mouth. After which, she said that there was another candidate for the post of head of the family, so she wanted to develop her abilities before he appeared, so that she would not have to leave this place. Arvid said that she didn't need to worry about it. After their first meeting, he thought that he wanted to take care of her as the head of the family. If something happened to her, he simply would not be able to bear it. After these words, the little girl rushed to hug him. She asked the young man for forgiveness, and he said that it was fine, but they should promise not to do it again. Meanwhile, Magnus was freaking out about how this man dared to ruin his business. The guy lost the contract with all the famous people who are engaged in construction. He doesn't even know where Crossel is, who went to a neutral area. Only Yolia are the only ones who could take such a step. But it is not so easy to find out what is happening in Hooks. Is the little sister involved in this? Although it's just funny, isn't this girl mentally retarded? It can't be otherwise. After all, it was he who made her that way. She was always like a doll that would not dare to resist or rebel. I wonder since when the little girl deceived him. He just can't believe that this stupid girl was playing with him, Magnus Elvor. Suddenly, the voice of the regent's subordinate and his assistant Elliot was heard saying that it was enough, he needed to calm down. The young man shouted, "How can he calm down?" Because this girl had teamed up with Yolia and they had gotten around him. The most annoying thing is that this feeble-minded Arvid knows perfectly well about his secret. The subordinate took him by the hand and said that if he did not want to reveal this secret, then he should stop right now, after which he added that the regent had called him to her. It dawned on the young man that Octavia was still his ally, so he ordered a carriage to be prepared for him immediately. On the way, the guy thought that it shouldn't be like this. He needed the regent to need him even more. He needed to look more beautiful and seductive. This will happen if the young man manages to avoid and replace that very prediction. As a child, his father declared that he would be ugly, dried up by the one he himself would give birth to, that what he desired would never fall into their hands. He would not be able to absorb even the flower close to him. Glory will belong only to the one who gave it a name. The flame can only be stolen by soft words and attitude. Then he began to shake with anger again, because he should have killed this girl much earlier. To prove that the prophecy was wrong, he made the mistake of trying to convince himself that the girl's flowers were useless. It is very difficult for him to restrain himself. Right now, he wants to catch her and kill her, catch her and tear her to pieces. The assistant reminded him that they would be arriving soon, so please let him mind his manners. Especially, he should never show her that expression distorted with anger. Magnus noted to himself that yes, he needed to control himself, because he still had a trump card for this. He had to continue to listen to the words of the regent. Upon seeing the young man, the regent of the Central Imperial House of Galaxia Octavia told her cute fox to come closer to her. The young man said that he couldn't believe that she wanted to see him at such a difficult time. For him, he was very happy. The young man cried bitterly because he missed her very much. The girl noted that today, he only said nice things. Magnus thought to himself that no matter how you look at it, the empire was in her hands only with the help of the saying that his father told him could she cancel the prophecy. To do this, he needs to become the husband of this woman. He needs to get permission to use the ring. The next day, our heroine asked if she could really take care of the garden at her own discretion. The man said that she could just give him instructions, and he would do everything. Elbert will follow the instructions of the ancestors who were outstanding gardeners. Although the garden is now in poor condition, the garden that his ancestors tended was magnificent and beautiful, and his grandparents also built the current imperial garden. Gloriosa then asked what had happened to this garden, that it was in such a deplorable state. The man replied that, to be honest, the plants began to die after the death of the previous owner. She was none other than the young master's own mother. The butler tried to save him, but no matter how much he cared for them, it was all useless since the plants themselves rejected water and nutrients. The little girl seemed to begin to understand what was wrong, so she said she thought she could save him. All the plants around are weak and drooping. Everything is dried up, and the bushes do not bear fruit. She would prefer to pull them out and grow new ones. The man asked if they could start by redividing the zones by type. The girl replied that she didn't want to divide into zones. It would feel like she was cutting the earth with a knife. She will create a beautiful garden that will match Yulticha. At first, she thought it was a complete mess, but that was just her arrogance. You just need to feed the soil a little. It's okay if they are not as beautiful as others. It's normal to grow next to flowers. They all must have loved their previous owner. That's why they must have been so sad they missed her after she left. They must have not wanted to bloom and decorate this garden anymore after that. But please let them not fade. She wants them to ennoble this place again, so that they will again appear in the form in which we the mistress loved them. It was an amazing sight, but after her words leaves and buds began to appear on the tree. Then the little girl heard the tree say that it was so bad, it was very lonely, let it love them. The butler could not believe his eyes, but the plants began to absorb the water. The plants that seemed to no longer want to live began to bloom again. All this happened thanks to a miracle that this little lady created with her own hands. Suddenly, the little girl began to lose consciousness, and the tree quickly picked her up. The man became very scared and ran towards her. He thought to himself, "How is this even possible? Is it really possible to love nature so much?" Then he realized that the girl didn't feel sick. She just fell asleep, and in her sleep she was smiling widely. I wonder if anyone from Elvor knows about this lady's ability. Maybe that's why she was so careful. When the maid came out to meet him, the butler said that it seemed she had been overworked and had fallen asleep. He thought to himself that from today on, he didn't need any gardening tools. The garden itself would become better and better. First of all, he needed to tell the owner about today's work. After some time, when the baby came to, she noted that it was dark around. Did she really miss dinner? How could this happen? Because they cook so well in this estate. How could she sleep through it? Therefore, she decided to at least go get a drink of water, let everyone forgive her, whom she might accidentally wake up. When she turned the corner, she saw a young man sleeping on the sofa and could not understand what he was doing there. After which, she sat down next to him and muttered out loud that, frankly speaking, she missed him. Then I realized that it was probably unnecessary to talk about it here, so I decided to at least cover it up. Suddenly, the young man grabbed our heroine by the hand and she screamed in surprise. Arvid greeted her and asked if she had slept well since she had been resting for a long time. Sometime later, when the guy was sitting opposite her, our heroine sat and thought about when this had happened. She remembers bumping into him while he was sleeping on the couch and asking him what he was doing there. The young man said that he was waiting for her here to do something for her. Let her wait a little. Then a maid appeared with a basin of water, and after that, he suddenly sat down to wash her feet. Gloriosa was very embarrassed, so she said that she could wash it herself, but the young man objected that he wanted to do it for her. Such is the tradition. It is the husband's privilege to wash the feet of his hard-working wife before going to bed after a hard day's work, so no maid can wash her mistress's feet. The little one thought that no one really washed her feet. It turns out that it was because of marital tradition. When Arvid finished, he asked how about a snack like oatmeal or pudding. The girl replied that it was almost morning, so she would just sleep and eat after she woke up. When asked if he was going to go back to his room, the guy replied that no, he was going to sleep on the couch. He wants to sleep, feeling her presence. There is nothing strange about it, because this is his room. It dawned on the little girl that she had been living in his room all this time. No wonder it seemed too big to her. The guy said that he would soon prepare a suitable room for her. He called the best merchant, so they did not have time to do everything earlier. When he comes, she can choose and arrange the room as she wants, regardless of money. But the little one couldn't get out of her head that she had been sleeping in his bed all this time. When the young gentleman took her hand and asked if everything was okay, the girl blushed even more, and flowers appeared around her. Gloriosa began to get nervous and asked them to disappear quickly, but nothing worked. The young man smiled and said that she was all blushing as he thought the little girl looked like Venus. Sometime later, while working in the garden, our heroine thought about what these words meant. She went to the library because she was curious, but even looking at the photographs, she didn't understand anything, but it was an amazingly beautiful planet. Perhaps Yulticha is a star family, that's why he called it a planet. Then she set about her work and began to hear the words of the plants that they would hold on and trust their lives to her. Baby said not to overdo it, she just wants to be with them a little longer. Luckily this time everything was fine, so she didn't faint. Suddenly, the maids appeared worriedly saying that they had been looking for her for a long time. Seeing that Gloriosa was all dirty, the maid grabbed her by the hand and said that there was no time to explain everything, after which she dragged her along, saying only that the merchant had arrived. The little girl immediately remembered Arvid's words, that he would soon prepare a suitable room for her, the guy called the best designer, so they did not have time to do everything in advance. She seemed to know who it was, the merchant, who was nicknamed the Golden Hand, despite being a commoner, a man who was determined not to bend even to sell his goods to an aristocrat. This is none other than the head of the trading guild, whose name is Rivalry. In fact, this is the first time she meets anyone as a hostess. Meanwhile, the assistant was indignant that they had been waiting for more than an hour. Even the gentleman came in person. What kind of impudence was this? The merchant muttered that this pickled peach was amazingly delicious, so let Jen just eat it. The guy tried to object that the gentleman himself says that time is money, but the young man decided to shut him up and quickly treated him to a peach. Then he added that he was very interested in what kind of person this was, who was a candidate for the role of mistress of the Yoltisha house. He noted to himself that most people are afraid of Magnus Elvor. He is ruthless and also has a bad character, although in his experience, he is nothing. Then he began to remember how at one of the events he was told that the guys could not believe that he had climbed so high, despite the fact that he was from common people, he had outstanding skills. But then they added that it was still doubtful there should be a limit to the views that a commoner can express, whether it is really a matter of ability and not a coincidence. Perhaps this is his skill. It would be very interesting to see how long he could hold out. The guy noted to himself that once again, they had decided that it was just a ridiculous coincidence, it was too obvious. It would be good if something new was said. Do they have no imagination at all? They could find fault with something else, instead of discussing its origin. Suddenly, a female voice was heard, saying that she had also heard a lot about Mr. Renault. They say that he travels all over the world and brings with him only the highest quality things personally selected by him. The woman thinks that this is much better than their aristocrats, who only go to parties, or she is wrong. The young man noted that this was Magnus's opponent, Yolia, a strong tone, an unwavering voice, and a direct female. The girl added that their family is looking after the merchant, so please let him continue to raise the status of the empire. The young man noted to himself that even her look was special. She looked with complete confidence. The previous owner of Yolia was different from everyone he had met so far. What kind of candidate came to take the place of such a person can't help herself because she's too curious. He even met Ayor pick another candidate, but she failed to make any impression on him. At last, the butler announced that Mrs. Gloriosa Yoltisha had arrived. The merchant thought to himself that it would be difficult to maintain the spirit of the former head of the house, but the new mistress could also bring something he hoped that she would not disappoint him too much. Our heroine appeared next, greeted the gentleman, and thanked him for having come such a long way, and now they could sit down and talk. His reputation is well known to everyone. She is glad that she can decorate her mansion with the best furniture that is so popular. Now Rivalry thanked her for such words, and added that he only has a small shop. The little girl replied that modesty was not always appropriate, but she noted to herself that as she thought she liked him. He seems to be agreeable, but will in no way behave too servilely, regardless of her age. They are careful now because they are dealing with the aristocracy. As expected, this man is an excellent craftsman, and the first merchant of the empire. He will become the best in the future. But it is not only for this reason that she has an interest in him. In her past life, when she was a tree, her elder brother asked her what he should do to destroy this merchant guy and his company. In fact, this young man was the one who taught Magnus a proper lesson. It was incredibly pleasant for her to see her relative going crazy from the impossibility of doing anything. Of course, it was because she helped a little with her power, but it was more because his ability and popularity were great. There must have been someone helping him. Knowing all this, she will be able to help Yolia establish friendly relations with him, after which she asked if she had kept him waiting too long. Let him drink tea first and eat. This is apple tea with cinnamon, which relieves fatigue. She also tried making nut cookies and cherry canapes. Jen whispered that even if she was a noble lady, a child was a child, and her tastes were the same. or in this way she was trying to ridicule them. The merchant objected that everything was quite the opposite, and let her wipe her drool before speaking. I noted to myself that these were snacks that could be eaten with hands. Even commoners who did not know the etiquette of eating aristocrats could eat comfortably. She was the first to start eating with her hands in order to eliminate the possibility of misunderstandings that could be taken as mockery. And considering that she is a child, everything looks natural and will not seem funny. I'm not sure he understood her intention correctly, but if he was right, then this child exceeded all his expectations quite well. Our heroine noted to herself that this was very good. It seemed that she had managed to arouse his interest, after which she said that in fact she called him today, not only to buy something, she wants to sell him her ideas. The merchant asked what other ideas he was really curious about what it could be, but today they were here to sell, not buy. Crumb added that it was about popular products such as the rose display case and the flower display case with the silver bell. He pays compensation for the use of the patent to the Elvor family, doesn't he? The young man said that if he thought about it, he had heard that the little star Yolia came from the east. The little girl replied that that's right. If he doesn't want to know a way to not pay for a patent, she offers him a way to break free from the shackles of the annoying Elvor. The guy was delighted that she immediately aroused his interest and even put forward a tempting offer for him. This negotiating technique was familiar to him, but maybe it was still a coincidence. We need to see what happens next. So he replied that he didn't even know it sounded sweet, but he had already encountered such sweet speeches so many times that it was no longer particularly interesting. The assistant began to nod and say that the gentleman received many similar offers, but the merchant told him to be quiet and added that he was still ready to listen to her. Gloriosa said that several years ago he designed flower-shaped stained glass windows, but he had a hard time selling them to the aristocracy because of his commoner status. Then, being on the verge, he knocked on one of the ducal houses. It must have been natural to choose the Elvor family, which symbolizes flowers. And the duke learned the value of his stained glass. Then he promised to replace all his windows with floral stained glass. This was also a kind of free advertising because every aristocrat could appreciate the value of the window. But as a result, he had to pay the duke a bribe every time he sold a display case to an aristocrat. There is no point in paying Magnus just because the concept of his window display is a flower. However, at this time, he had no other choice. She wants to open his eyes, the head of the trading guild, and show him the way she thinks that no one else will offer him such an ideal option. Moreover, the world is arranged in such a way that trends tend to change. The aristocrats must have gotten tired of it after years of using only rose or lily displays. Maybe he would have gradually felt it too. For now, he needs to come up with something else that will be a hit. After which, she showed him the sketches and said that in the future, this could clearly become popular. These were windows with an astronomical map. This was entirely her idea. The design and everything else was also hers. She plans to call this window the space window and also replace all the Yolia windows. But she notes to herself that she made him wait for more than just preening. Decided she needed visual evidence to convince him, so she asked the maid to bring her something else besides food. It was paper and pen, that's why she took the time to draw this drawing. Then she continued to explain that the designs below are called the constellation window and the moon window. She is considering selling the goods only in his trading company in the name of Yolia. The patent is a third of what he pays Magnus. The man was surprised why she decided to do this, because it was completely unprofitable, so he asked why she was giving him such an opportunity. The little girl asked him if he had ever heard the phrase that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. One way or another, 3 years later, he would develop a new product himself. A series inspired by flower displays. The flower bed would become one of the best products of the trading company. If he had created the flower bed, as he had planned, he would have had to pay Elvor again, after which she said that, as she had already said, she thought it was a good contract for him. She noted to herself that through her connections, she had already gotten rid of one of Magnus's major financial channels. This time, the Rivalry company was next in line. She needed to prevent her older brother from getting more money. While the young man was thinking about her proposal, the little one added that he knew there was a saying that you have to trust a contract. Merchants who wander through the country following the flow of goods, also those who move with the faith of finding good goods for such merchants, the principle, Trust the contract is like the old compass. The young man could not believe that such a proposal was coming from a child. Besides, these were too precise sketches. Everything was thought out to the smallest detail. This idea is sure to be a success. No product in his company has ever used the abstract concept of the universe. In its design, a proposal from a man who knows exactly what he is doing. After which he replied that, okay, they would first make a prototype of the item she ordered. Then you need to check the product, then sign the contract and get another design. Our heroine replied that she agreed. The merchant noted to himself that she seemed too calm despite the fact that she had made a deal of such magnitude. He just can't believe that there's a child sitting in front of him, after which he asks what products she'd like to order. The assistant immediately approached her and placed a large catalog on the table. Gloriosa objected that the prices in this catalog were simply ridiculous. Let them bring her the appropriate one, then they would talk about other goods. Richeval admired that this one was created to collect 20% more from the aristocrats. But she immediately understood everything. It's just amazing. The young man laughed so much that tears even flowed from his eyes. And he noted to himself that a rather outrageous person had appeared in Yultetia. After some time, Renewal said that there was nothing more to see. This child would definitely become the next owner. The assistant asked in surprise, in what sense? Richeval told him not to be stupid to contact the workshop and tell them to get everything ready they need to take advantage of this opportunity to have people lining up for them. He thought to himself that this girl would definitely follow in her footsteps, and he too was going to direct his future along this path. Meanwhile, our heroine fell to the floor and said that she was just so nervous that her legs suddenly became weak. She thought to herself that she liked the fact that she confidently concluded the deal on behalf of Yultetia. But what should she do next, since she didn't receive permission from Arvid for this? But when she entered his office, the butler launched a firecracker, and the boys exclaimed that they congratulated her. When asked what they were congratulating her on, the guy replied that he had heard that she had successfully concluded a contract with the trading guild, and on favorable terms at that. He was originally going to be present at the meeting as well, but apparently there was no need for that. She did an excellent job. The maid immediately put a congratulatory cap on her and said that now the celebration could begin. Another maid came next, brought a cake, and congratulated her on her first contract, so she prepared her favorite dessert in her honor. Our heroine was at a loss, as their reaction was different from what she had imagined. Gloriosa thought she would get into trouble for doing this without permission. It makes her think she's some kind of war heroine. It's just furniture. Then Lem entered the room, who also congratulated her, and said that he heard that she made a deal with the trade guild now. Thanks to her, a window would appear in his room too. The little girl didn't understand what the meaning was. Did Arvid never install a window in his father's room? And besides, he seemed somehow dissatisfied. It's just her guess, but she thinks the relationship between them is very strained. After which she said that she actually had to apologize. In addition to buying furniture, she signed a contract with the merchant guild without even asking permission. She didn't have enough time to say it beforehand, but it's true that she acted arbitrarily, so if they get angry, she'll understand. But suddenly, the guy said that he heard this story from the servants. He was really interested in learning about stained glass windows, so could she show him the design when she had the chance? Gloriosa asked if this meant that everything was okay. Since she had acted presumptuously, the young man replied that he could not be offended or angry at what she was doing. Besides, it was a wonderful idea. The man asked if this was not done for the development of Yultechi. The son is not him, and Lem knows that his daughter-in-law is not the type to do something without thinking they are grateful to her, so there is no need to worry. The little girl did a great job. She thought to herself that no matter how much she contributed to what she did, no one had ever said such words to her before. The young man said that the chef had tried hard and prepared a lot of delicious food for her. He was most heartbroken after the garden died. The guy thinks that he wants to repay her for it, at least this way. After some time sitting down at the table, the little one exclaimed that there really was too much food here. The current head of the family picked up that, thanks to her, he will have a good day full of food. Our heroine was touched by the fact that in Yultetia, they really accept her as she is. After which, she said that tomorrow, she also wants to go to the garden. She needs more time, but she will definitely bring him back to life. The young man said that she could do whatever she wanted, and he would look forward to it. After dinner, When they went out into the street, the butler exclaimed that she was a real diamond. It was a very reasonable purchase if she had bought furniture from an aristocratic catalog. That is how much they would have spent. Then he looked at Lem and exclaimed. When he had already managed to undress, the man replied that he was uncomfortable in clothes because of his muscles. Helbert asked what he was going to do if some curious lady came. She might get really scared. The man retorted that actually it was his horns and the tail of a minotaur. When the butler realized that he had not checked it again, Lem said that it was okay, everyone in Yultecha knew his peculiarities. Moreover, this is a place where no one can enter, after which he turned to the egg and told it to have a good sleep, since he wanted it to hatch as soon as possible. This must happen before a man goes to the next world. The Ring of Control is one of the treasures of the first emperor, which he treated with great care. After the founding of the empire, the first emperor paid homage to the four heads. In Elvor in the east, there were 1,000 divine trees. In Yultecha in the south, there is a meteorite that enhanced magic. It is said that he gave unknown gifts to both the heads of the north and west, after which the emperor, having received the blood flesh and breath of the worthy, created a ring of control to control absolutely everything. There is a limitation on the use of certain phrases, but the one who uses the ring can unconditionally subjugate anyone by giving an order with the ring. The only way to get rid of this control is death, nothing else. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the butler, who asked whether the regent's request was a trap. The man replied that of course this woman wanted him to die. Otherwise, what was the point of sending over and over again a complex request that he had to complete on his own? She has many excuses in stock. Last time it was killing pirates. This time it is killing a member of the royal family. He had a group of assassins under his command, called the Black Spot, which was a good excuse. It seems like this woman will send him on a killing mission until he is defeated. Helbert said he can't believe he used the Black Spot when he worked so hard to raise them. When asked if he was really going to leave everything as it was, the man answered thoughtfully that he didn't even know. When the assistant shouted that he couldn't just leave everything like that, if they let the situation go like that, they could get into big trouble. Lem remembered something. The woman told him that he should concentrate. The man asked how he could, when he had to read all these documents. When asked if he hadn't found the key to solving their son's curse, the man replied that he had, but now he wanted to look at other methods. Working as a hired killer, lifting the curse from his son without her. Everything seems boring and meaningless. He misses Grace very much. Then his attention was drawn to a window behind which there were a large number of trees. After which he asked whether there had always been so many palm trees outside. The butler replied that yes, they had been dying for a long time, but that the lady had recently begun to take care of them again. Lem noted that she was doing quite well, since they could be seen even from here. Helbert said that the little lady possessed a truly mysterious power. The man noted to himself that after her arrival, a lot of changes had definitely occurred. The son, who was depressed after his wife passed away, now looks cheerful. She also aroused inexplicable feelings in him when she called him father, and said that he was very kind to her, and in general, she really liked Yultecha. Then he asked where this child usually was. At this time, the butler replied that today, the lady was going to the chef's garden. They say she is there helping with wilted vegetables. The little girl said that she would look after the garden until the test began. Lem remembered that they had a Lady Peachy or Mitchy. He doesn't remember exactly. That lady from the capital. She doesn't stand out in any way, and she didn't bring anything with her. The kingdom seemed to be famous for silk and embroidery. He should also buy some gifts for his daughter-in-law on the way to the murder scene. How many dresses should small children usually have? The man replied that he did not know. Since he had never taken care of a little lady before, perhaps 100 would be enough. Lem said that he would then buy 100 dresses for spring and summer, respectively. In total, there would be 200 dresses. The assistant tried to stop him. The head was indignant that he was really going to oppose his decision, since he could only wear one a day. The butler said that in fact, young ladies usually change their dresses 3 times a day, so at least 300 were needed. Lem thought that indeed, if you think about it, his wife, it seems, also wore a lot of dresses. After which he said that he would then buy 600 pieces. The butler supported this idea and wished him a good journey. Then he threw the key into the hands of his butler and said that it was the key to his personal safe. Meanwhile, the little one sighed heavily and stated that now that was it, mixing root crops when replanting was the same as cruel treatment. While the plants were thanking her, and she was saying that if they grew well, the chef would be happy, a dragon appeared and ate one of them. Our heroine was taken aback by the surprise and could not understand where he had even come from. Suddenly, Lem's voice was heard saying that he had been told that she would be here, and he had indeed found her. The little girl asked in surprise what had brought him to this corner of the garden. The man replied that it was his property, so he could go wherever he wanted. Suddenly, he said that she looked like pudding. Our heroine did not understand what this meant, whether he was hinting that she had gained weight. Then a dragon sat on her head, and the girl was indignant that it wasn't enough to eat a carrot from the garden, but he was going to eat her cheek. The man said his name was Nino, and his species was a pterodactyl. Gloriosa noted to herself that this was the first time she had seen a pterodactyl in real life. She knew that in Ultitia they were used as carrier pigeons, but as expected, knowing the information and seeing it in person were two different things. After which, she said that she thought they would look a little scarier, but when she saw him in person, she realized how cute he was, even though he mercilessly ate the carrot. The man said she better get used to them. She would soon have her own pterodactyl. He thought it would be a good idea to take this opportunity to show it to her in person and told her to follow him. Then he suggested that they have a cup of tea and said that she really was eating well, and now let her try the green grape pie so that she would look even more like a pudding. When Okroshka said that the kitchen was quiet today, when did he manage to cook all this? Lem replied that he ordered everything from a famous bakery in the south. Sometimes it's worth trying what someone else cooked. After which, he presented her with a black box containing an egg and said that it now belonged to her. Gloriosa admired how beautiful it was, and the hard shell looked exactly like the color of her hair. She will protect it and also treat it carefully. She really wants to meet it. The man noted that she had wonderful abilities, as he thought this egg suits her very well. Now he will tell her in detail how to use the pterodactyls correctly. Firstly, the pterosaur can imitate the voice of its owner. Now it will demonstrate this. After which, the dragon began to speak in his voice that he was meeting her for the first time. It was very nice to meet you. Welcome to his family. Lem continued that the smartest of them can copy anything, so it is quite useful. If he raises his pterodactyl well, he will be able to do the same. The little one asked how to raise him. When the man answered that she needed to be brought up well, the little girl said that she wanted to know what it meant to be well, and that he wouldn't help her at all. The head of the family replied that it had been a long time since he had seen a child speak like that in his presence, and when she grew up, they would definitely drink with her later. Suddenly, a white pterodactyl appeared, and the man said that his son does not even let him have peace with his bride. Then the creature in Arvid's voice said that her room was ready. Would she like to come and see it now? The man noted that she now understands that he is trying to get rid of it by any means possible. The little girl came up to him, hugged him, and said she thought it was time for her to go. Thank you very much for today. She will also definitely make a nice gift for him, because she is going to make the garden the way it was before, and now she has to go. Lem stated that one egg would not be enough in exchange for saving the garden and his wife. Because of this child, he absolutely did not want to leave. When our heroine found the guy, she couldn't understand what was happening to him. He looked very unhappy, but why? The young man said that in addition to what she ordered, the head of the trading guild sent her a separate gift. Now she will see everything. The girl didn't understand what to do. Now he must be jealous of the time she spent with his father. Arvid behaves very childishly at such moments. Then he stopped near one of the doors and said that her room was there. The little one immediately noted that it was next to his bedroom. This embarrassed her a little, but she said that the young man should look at the room with her, after which she used her abilities and illuminated everything around with flowers for him. Gloriosa admired how beautiful it was there. There was also a flower bed, but she thought it would take a long time, but they prepared everything so quickly. There was also a card with a message on it. In it, the merchant reported that they had sent her a sample of a new bed. He hoped that she would forgive him for this rudeness. He would dare to ask her for a favor. The guy would like her to give the name of this bed herself. The little girl said that he wanted her to come up with a name for the product before they sold anything from her ideas. The guy noted that the guild leader clearly trusted her. Then the little one finished reading that he was eagerly awaiting an answer from the only small star in the constellation, Ultitia. The baby was very surprised, because he knows that in Ultitia There are two little stars who will pass the exam for the place of the hostess. The young man said that it was just wonderful because she had the support of the head of the trade guild. The girl replied that this was not the main thing, now we needed to come up with some name. This bed is an item that will be a hot seller in the guild again, so the name is very important. Then the name came to her mind. Flower Fairy. She is going to make another format calling that bed Flower Fairy, and this bed is beautiful, even too beautiful. First, the lily and the gloriosa. The idea is to use the two flowers in a contrasting combination, and then the anturia between them. She thinks it would be nice to finish the composition by placing a peony in the corner, decorating it with poppy flowers to make it look more passionate and grandiose. Then she asked if there was a flower farm nearby, and she needed to make a bouquet of what she wanted to send them. The guy said she could just give the list to the butler. The little girl decided that she also needed to redraw the drawing and attach it to the bouquet. Where is her feather? Also, the name for the new type of bed is already ready. It will be called The Splendor of Flowers. The young man wondered how she could smile so radiantly in front of him. He exchanged magic for a curse. This curse is very strong, so that no one can be kind to him. The girl comes to him naturally, as if not noticing it, adding warmth to this quiet place. Who else can be called a candidate for family members, if not her? Only Gloriosa is the mistress of this family, which the young man wants to serve, the only little star of Yoltichia. Meanwhile, the girls admired that she was such a charming lady, the only golden rose, the flower of the empire. One of them said that, come to think of it, she heard that the lady was leaving for the south soon, so why was she heading there? The woman said that her daughter was chosen as a candidate for the role of the mistress of Yoltechia. She is embarrassed to say this, but she is sure that she will succeed because the girl carefully studied the entire history of the South since childhood. All those present supported her and said that, of course, the lady would definitely become the hostess. She was the only one worthy of this place. Ayer Pick, the daughter of the Marquis and the niece of the current regent, a charming daughter of an important aristocratic family. Her life was as beautiful as her face. Wherever she went, she was accompanied by a knight. Even when she bought a hat, the owner of the establishment bowed low to her. Thanks to her innate angelic appearance, she was able to easily win the sympathy of many people. But that was not all. One day, a guest tearfully asked her for forgiveness for ruining her box, and said that her mother would definitely make up for it. But the girl took her hand and said that everything was okay, because she hadn't hurt herself on purpose. Suddenly, one of those present said that there were rumors that Lord Yultisha was already married. As they know, her husband is at the royal palace. He overheard the conversation between the Minister of the Interior and the Chancellor. Ayor noted to herself that if high-ranking officials were talking about this, then it meant that the rumors were not false. So what should she do now? The young man who is to become her husband cannot be so dissolute since she has behaved chastely until now. Suddenly, the woman stood up and said that today's tea party was over. She had a nice time. After a while, the little girl was crying on her lap and saying that it seemed she had lost. Mother asked her for forgiveness and said that she did not know that Lord Yultecha would take a mistress. The baby exclaimed that in addition to everything, his fiancée is the younger sister of the head of the Elvor family. What to do if she is a candidate for the post of head of the family? She earns points in advance. This is cheating. She noted to herself that she would not tolerate her life being a failure because of this, because she was a candidate for the role of head of the family. So why did Lord Yultisea make such a choice? Then it dawned on her that the unfortunate lord had lost his mother and was therefore wandering as he had not yet met Ayur. Therefore, she must go south and meet him. The woman muttered that it was quite possible tomorrow she would ask the regent about it. After some time, the butler stated that she had ordered flowers from a flower company to make a basket. The girl replied that yes, they had bought a lot, so she would give some to the others too. After which she asked where the attending physician's room was. The man answered that it was located in Istvan, but why did she suddenly need a doctor? Gloriosa explained that she received a lot of help from him, so she will give him a basket of flowers. Helbert muttered that someone was lucky this snake would receive a gift before him. Our heroine wondered why the people in this family were so jealous. After which she said that she would definitely make the next basket for him, so he shouldn't be offended. On the way, the girl thought about whether he was even there. This man tried harder for her than the others. When she arrived here, she really wanted to thank him. But when she approached his door, she saw that there was a sign hanging on it: break. But suddenly, the doors swung open, and the man said that it was not for nothing that he heard the sounds of footsteps that were similar to those of a squirrel. After which, the doctor stated that he knew it was her that something had happened, that she was unwell or something like that. Our heroine said that it was not about that she came to express gratitude for all this time. Here is a gift, a basket of flowers, and chamomile tea. Nix replied that he couldn't just pass by. This let her pass by. She'll like it as soon as she looks at it. Then he handed her a small box and said that it was a gift from him. Only it was a secret that he gave it to her. Then the man explained that this was his secret box of sweets. If you put them in your mouth and wash them down with tea, it will be very sweet. This is an old tradition of the South candies, with the taste of salt. Without any special smell, they also add nabat made from fruit juice and honey, very tasty with tea. After which he made her some tea, and said that first she should try biting into one candy and then take a sip. When the little girl did everything as he said, she was a little surprised, although sweet but a little bitter. The man reported that the alarm is also eaten in this way. After being immersed in water, it is stirred and eaten. The sweet taste of the alarm can be added to aromatic tea and drunk. Gloriosa couldn't stop wondering how tea with candies would taste so good. It would be great if more people knew about it. This is a specific food culture of the region. The cultures of the East and South are very different. If different people get to know each other, it will be fun. The doctor wondered why she was so smart at such a young age, and the girl thought to herself that if she had the chance, she should try to create a suitable candy with a distinct aroma for every tea. Suddenly, the man asked her if she had met the butler on the way, and if she had said that she was going to give him a gift. When our heroine answered that she had met him, Nix came to the conclusion that this jealous man was clearly very offended. It was worth watching, so he would go and tease him a little later. After which, he added that he wanted to tell her something interesting, that many special creatures live in Yultechia, and finding them would be another joy of this place. The little girl exclaimed that it was very curious could he tell her more about it, but the doctor objected that then it would not be fun. After some time, the little girl complained to her fiancé that it was mean of the doctor not to continue telling her everything since she was interested. Then she asked if he could give her a little hint. The guy replied that he didn't know. In his opinion, it would also be more fun if she found them herself. Gloriosa decided to change the subject and asked why he didn't ask her about anything she had promised to tell him about the sacred object of every family. Wasn't this information important to him? Unexpectedly, the young man replied that he was curious about something else. On the day they first met, how did she know that he would appear there and wait for him? And also, how did she know that he was interested in sacred objects? The little girl noted to herself that there was nothing to worry about, because she had expected this question from him. Therefore, she replied that the story of the Yultechia family, being cursed by the first emperor, had long been known. She thought that Arvid wanted to find the tree and find a clue to dispel the curse. She assumed that since he had no information, then when he heard the word tree, the forest would come to mind, so he would go there since her goal then was to meet him and escape from Elvor. That was the reason she went there. She noted to herself that she wouldn't tell him that she had returned to the past. If the past that she knew changed, then everyone would be in danger. After thinking for a moment, the young man muttered that this was a hypothesis that had some basis. The girl added that he was probably interested in knowing the source of this information, but she asked him not to ask her. The young man replied that, well, whatever the reason, he respected her wish, since they had already spoken about it. Then could he ask about the sacred object of each family? The baby exclaimed that, of course, to begin with, Elvador's sacred object is a tree, not in the forest, on the holy land of the family. Protective magic is installed in several layers. Only her family can step on this holy land. The guy asked what would happen if someone not from her dynasty went there. Gloriosa replied that that person would receive a curse. Arvid muttered that this meant he couldn't go there, but the girl objected that there was a way. It is necessary to take the blood of one of the Elvador and enter that place. In her past life, after this, as with the help of this method, he approached the tree, he was able to save her, and took the sin upon himself. How can she not love him like this? After which she continued that the north received a precious sword, the west received a bronze mirror. Several dozen small mirrors are collected into one whole mirror of incredible size. The young man noted that the problem was that both places were very far away. It would be difficult to do even with his magic, because he could only move to a place he had been to before. Gloriosa thought to herself that it was true that magic always had its limitations. It was not omnipotent. The guy said that, then she definitely knows about the sacred gift of Yultetia. The baby replied that to a certain extent. But there is no need to worry, almost no one knows except her. But she noted to herself that it is possible that in this period of time, only she knows about this, since she knew what her fiancé's reaction would be. The guy said that it was a relief it would be a hassle to get rid of a lot of people. Our heroine added that Magnus he knows not in detail but to some extent. She noted to herself that this was not a lie, because soon he would find out all this through the reagent. She was the first to start this story, hiding the truth about her past life, in order to do justice to the thirst for revenge. After which she said that taking advantage of the moment she wants to honestly confess her goal, the girl plans to pay off those who tortured her. When asked if it was Magnus, our heroine replied that no, it was the entire Elvor genus. She thought to herself that Magnus would become a threat to Yultetia in the future, so it would be right if she, having become the head of the family, combined her personal revenge and dealt him a blow. She didn't know if Arvid would like her after that, but suddenly the young man smiled and asked her to make her face simpler, and said that such a frightening expression didn't suit her. The guy will follow her no matter what goal she chooses, so he doesn't have to worry. The little girl was at a loss at first, but then thanked him wholeheartedly and said that she was curious about something too. Arvid replied that she could ask about anything. Our heroine added that this is about becoming the head of the family, how the test was carried out before under the previous head of the family. The young man replied that 3 tests had been arranged for his mother and her rival, Catherine McDavel. The most difficult of them was the last one to save a starving village with 3 fish and 5 loaves of bread. The little one exclaimed, "I mean, how can you save the starving people with so much food?" The guy replied that Catherine used illusion magic. While people were getting food from other places, she paralyzed their minds and made them lose their hunger. Gloriosa muttered that this was a deception. If you hide something like this, then people still won't be full. The groom replied that yes, she was just pretending that it was hard for her to look at the starving people. The girl was also a kind person in everyday life. But it is difficult to take the right measures in a critical situation. When asked what the previous head of the family had done, the young man said that his mother had found a coffin for the child that same day. Then she put all the food in this coffin and gathered the aristocrats, after which she knelt before him and began to pray silently, without any calls. The girl said that the dining table in this place is full of food and the children outside are dying of hunger. She is sad and grieves for them. After this, mother herself lay down in the coffin and, closing her eyes, lay quietly. According to father, she looked like an angel who had descended from heaven. The amount raised for charity that day was the highest ever, and after that, Mom was called a saint, although she didn't like it. Gloriosa admired to herself that Grace was quite a creative person. The lady's act was nothing less than art. When asked what was left of that village, the young man answered that now it was a huge flower farm. With the money left over after buying food, his mother built a greenhouse there. The patron spirit's request for salvation included the future of this village. Our heroine said that this was very cool, after which she asked if she could become like his mother. She thought to herself that the determination to kneel before others, regardless of status, and even the insight to see the future, the nobility that evokes emotions and touches the souls of others, could she be the same? Unexpectedly, the young man supported her and said that she would become a wonderful head of the family in the way that suits her. The little one thanked him and said that she hoped that her rival was also a wonderful person, so that this would be a pleasant experience. And she noted to herself that the feeling when he touched her hand that day remained for a long time. Meanwhile, Elvor happily showed some toy and said that she received it as a gift. Is there anything like that in the south? Leopold von Galaxios, the young emperor, said that he did not know because there were many merchants living in the south. The girl replied that even if not everything was fine, she could invite them. If she did, everyone would come running from the capital. The young man looked out the window and thought that they were finally going to that very place, Yultetia, the source of his sin. Their thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a subordinate, who looked into their carriage and said that they were ready to leave. The young man noted to himself that Sir Shan was one of the few masters of the sword of the Empire. If he were a genius, then the regent would have kept him with her, but who would have known that he would be given to ire? However, it was not only this, the woman gave him a ring, and said that if the girl wanted anything, she would fulfill her wish using this ring. It can do anything, and it knows better than anyone that with this ring, everything is possible. Who knows what Her Majesty the Regent is thinking? In any case, it doesn't matter. He wants only one thing, and that is grace. Finally, the young man will be able to sit Yulticha, which the girl loved so much. A little later, our heroine watched from the window as the servants bustled about and talked about the need to decorate everything and also tidy up the inside of the rooms. She thought about how everyone was working so hard, looking inspired, because of the upcoming welcoming ceremony for the candidates for the post of head of the house. Richevel suddenly appeared and said that it was really impressive. You couldn't even tell that it was the mansion he saw last time. The girl noted that it had become a little more beautiful. The young man replied that yes, he had not thought that a garden in this place could blossom so much. Why did the maid bring him tea, and the little girl tell him to try the sweets that she had prepared personally? Gloriosa explained that these candies have flowers added to them, and in the form of a stick, they can be stirred into tea. It will slowly melt, and when you drink it all, flowers will remain at the bottom of the mug. The merchant noted that it was very poetic, and inventive flowers would bloom in the tea drunk. Taking a sip, the young man exclaimed that it was much more wonderful than he had imagined. The bitter tea and sweet fruit juice went well together. Gloriosa reported that she tried adding fresh flowers to a southern dessert called Nabat Richevel, noted that he had heard of it, but tried it for the first time. Excellent harmony with flowers. The girl said that in that case, let her try again, and ordered the maid to bring more, please. These were the desserts she explored and changed during this time: violet candies, lily-shaped marshmallows, rose-shaped caramels, and chocolates containing fruit juice. There is also lemon powder. You can poke your finger into it and eat it while you eat a candy or alarm. After trying a little, the guy grimaced that it was very sour. The little girl laughed and said that it was not for adults, but for children. It was so that they could get used to flower candies from childhood. The man stated that at this rate it would be possible to open a business, and our heroine replied that she had already thought about it. She noted to herself that in order to stop the evil deeds of her older brother and snatch the charity business from him, there is something she must do first and foremost, and that is capital. After which she said that by putting these desserts into large-scale production, she would open a flower-themed candy store and sell them cheaply so that everyone could buy flower candies. However, she will make an expensive gift set of chocolates in the shape of a rose, and in each chocolate she will use a different fruit juice. The young man exclaimed that he understood perfectly what she was talking about. Then we could move on to discussing the agreement. She showed it to him, because she wants to use the guild's distribution network right. The little girl replied that it was true, but not only for that reason. She is going to build a workshop in the poorest village under Yulticha and create jobs. He can take half of the share and do this business. Therefore, he wants to ask the question whether he will take up this enterprise with her, with equal shares as a colleague. The young man noted that she was always worthy of praise. Our heroine did not argue, and added that this was her advantage. Also, let the guy find out about the site for building a school dormitory. She is going to teach orphans and children who are bullied. She will make it so that they can work anywhere after graduating from school. The merchant asked why she decided to do this, whether it was out of aristocratic sympathy. Gloriosa replied that not at all. She is not free enough to sympathize with others. Her goal is revenge. She noted to herself that by extending a helping hand to them, she would select the geniuses she needed for revenge and make them her puppets. Let the elder brother watch. This is her way of managing power. She will not treat them like slaves, but will personally raise them. No matter what happens, the girl will become their protection, so that they will always be on her side. After which, she added that for starters, that was all you needed to know. She wouldn't act like the false aristocrat he despised so much. Richevel replied that he did not know what she had planned, but he trusted his fate to the little star, and therefore he would follow her order. The little girl thanked him, and noted to herself that she had most likely already acquired a reliable ally. Meanwhile, Arvid was thinking that the time would soon come for the meeting between Gloriosa and Richevel to end. Then the young man suddenly began to choke with a coughing fit, and he only had time to think about how tired he was of this curse. Hearing the doors start to open, the guy decided it was the maid and asked her to bring him some water, But it turned out to be our heroine who asked what happened. The guy objected that it was nothing special, since she had come. He should warn her so that the others could come later. The little girl said that if he suddenly needed something, he should definitely say so. Seeing a pile of documents on his desk, the little one asked if maybe she should grow flowers every day. But Arvid said that it was okay. It was dangerous to get used to the fact that the eyes began to see. It is enough as now to cover once a week, at most 3 times a week. But he noted to himself that he does not want Ryozi to discover this blood from coughing what to do. Therefore, I decided that I needed to distract her somehow, after which I stated that she was not properly acquainted with Vira. It turned out that this was the name of his little snow-white pterodactyl. Our heroine immediately decided to pet him, and noted that he was really very, very cute, purring like a kitten. The guy quickly began to put on his gloves and thought about what he was doing, so there was no one on this earth who didn't know about his curse, but he didn't want to show it to her. The baby noted that he is very big. Nino seems to be smaller in size. Arvid said that Nino is a crow. Vera is the size of a swan, so the difference will be big. The little girl said that she hopes that her pterodactyl will also grow big. She already really wants to hug and kiss Vi. This is the very name she will give to her soon-to-hatch pterosaur. She read in a book that if you call the egg by name and play songs for it, it will be useful, so she does it every day. The young man noted that this was simply amazing. He was absolutely sure that her pterodactyl would be very cute no matter what size. Then the young man stood up from the table and said that he had heard that the head of the trading guild had presented her with a gift. The girl replied that yes. He said he would send the hat and shoes tomorrow. It seemed he wanted to give them before the other candidate arrived. He said he would give a small gift to the star on her path to becoming the universe. Arvid took the box in his hands and said that if he hadn't prepared it earlier, he would have been jealous it was for the candidate's welcoming ceremony. He wanted to give it to the very first one. When our heroine opened the box, she saw a beautiful necklace and admired it, but it looked like a treasure. Could she even accept it? The young man noted to himself that this necklace was 5,000 years old, of course. This treasure silence, in the density, the first king of the now-disappeared kingdom made it and gave it to his only queen. He did not think of anyone but Gloriosa as his wife. This will also be a sure sign of his intention for Ayur Peak. Our heroine had mixed feelings, so she muttered that it was really too precious a gift for her. Arvid said that if it was a burden, then he should consider it an expression of gratitude, since thanks to her, Yultichia had established a strong connection with the trade guild. And also on the day when they cannot see each other, let him think about him looking at this necklace. The little girl immediately rushed to hug him and said that she would definitely do so. Some time later, the maids were at an intervention, as they did not know what to do with this necklace. We need to think about this together, how to tell the lady about this. In the fashion industry, there is a certain trend. A beautiful necklace is matched with a suitable hat, then a dress that matches them, mesh gloves, a summer scarf, and so on. In addition to this, a variety of accessories are needed. But their mistress's wardrobe was at an end. Only those things that she had already worn remained in it. And besides, this necklace was very unusual. The little one has nothing else to wear. These things were bought by the butler, who showed attention, but he never cared about the lady, so he does not know how quickly girls her age grow up. Summer has come, and all the dresses have become too small. Their mistress is like an angel, you just have to dress her in something. Therefore, it is necessary to go to Arvid. If everything is left as is, then the lady will be strongly compared with her rival. As they were heading to his office, they saw other excited servants running across the courtyard. Upon seeing the girls, one of them exclaimed that they should quickly come down and do something about it. There was complete chaos outside now. After a while, the little girl asked if these were all the gifts sent by Mr. Lem. The maid replied that they said they were sent along with the letter. Our heroine did not understand at all why she was so suddenly sent so many gifts. The letter said that the man had heard that the day was near when another candidate would arrive. He's too lazy to choose, so they'll send him everything that's in the clothing store, let him make Arvid wear what she likes. Gloriosa was very grateful to him, but this was too much. But for some reason, everyone around looked happy thanks to the gentleman. For the next few years, you definitely don't need to worry about clothes. You need to keep the postcard in the house that Mr. Lem built. Suddenly, a knight appeared shouting that another misfortune had happened, and several more carriages with things arrived. A huge column of carriages will soon emerge from the mansion. The guy noted that each carriage had a flag of the Merchant Guild hanging on it. It looked like these were gifts for her. After all, Gloriosa thought to herself that Richevel had said that he would only send a few pairs of shoes and dresses. Then the young man added that the Trade Guild also said that they sent a journalist and illustrator from Blueblad Times. They want an interview with her. Can they be let through? This is a monthly magazine that is widely known not only in the Empire, but also abroad. With this interview, Richevel was going to announce and advertise the news that it had merged with Yultisia. In that case, she just had to take this chance, after which she said that they should all be let inside. Also, let them prepare luxurious and elegant snacks for the journalists. I thought to myself that tomorrow, on the cover of this magazine, people will see who is the candidate for the post of the next head of the Yultisia family. A little later, the journalist thought that, thanks to her insight, which she had developed as the illegitimate child of ruined aristocrats, she now had a premonition of something special. The maid warned that the mistress was a lady from the Elvor family, so they should mind their manners. Fenny was fully confident that the article she would write here would be simply an incredible report. When she entered the room, she bowed and thanked Gloriosa for agreeing to an interview today. Our heroine replied that there was no need to introduce herself so diligently. Her name is Gloriosa Yultetia. And what are their names? The girl admired that she had such incredible beauty, as if she came from another world. Her name is Fenny, and Wilson arrived with her. The little one noted that they were probably hungry, so let them eat the prepared snacks. Fenny thought to herself that there was a power in her strong gaze that attracted people. Her skin was so white and pure that you couldn't even see her pores. It was just crazy that if Wilson couldn't convey her beauty, it would be murder. After which she said that it was time to start the interview. The first question, if you need to choose what she likes most in the Yultisia family, what would it be? The little one answered that people and the surrounding nature. The girl continued that, at such a young age, she had arrived in such a distant place. Did she have any fear of the upcoming test? Gloriosa answered that not at all. The journalist noted to herself that even through the interview, she understood her nobility. She had interviewed many aristocrats, but no one could compare with her in beauty. And for the first time, she felt that she was not treating them rudely. This is not just a special report, it will help her career in the future. Thanks to Richevel for sending her to this place, she wants to tell the world about this person as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the gentleman received a notification that the arrival of a candidate for the post of head of the family is expected tomorrow. In addition, together with Lady Eyre-Pick, another person will arrive, namely His Majesty Leold von Galaxios. It is necessary to prepare carefully. The young man immediately began to burst with anger. Because of this information, how dare he come here at all? Some time later, Gloriosa said that I would finally have the second candidate arriving today. When asked if she was worried, the girl answered that, on the contrary, she wanted everything to start as soon as possible. The guy reported that something unexpected had happened. He didn't understand why he had slipped in here, but he was informed that the young emperor would be coming with her. This man is called the Golden Deer. Seen in the dream, she only knows that this year he turned 16 years old, and also that his golden hair and eyes, full of superiority, are dearly loved by all the citizens of the empire. But the girl did not hear what happened between Arvid and the young man. Then she asked if everything was okay. His expression looked gloomy, if he had any problems with the emperor. The young man reported that the last trace of his mother, the place she visited before her death, was the imperial palace. Of course, the guy doesn't think that the emperor killed her, because he is a weak-willed person, but he is sure that someone from the imperial family was definitely involved in her death. The excuse that it was a natural death is simply absurd. Gloriosa asked if she could hear a little more about that very day. The young woman began to tell that it was then the day of obedience, the day when one kneels before the master and pays for the use of a divine object, but her mother did not go to the regent that day, but went to the emperor's dominions. Why she went to the place that caused her death? He does not know, but does he know that in that palace, the body of his mother was found lying as if she had fallen asleep? When asked where the emperor himself was at that time, the young man replied that according to him, he was at a lesson. The imperial family does not give any more answers. The little one said that then it is wonderful news that the emperor is coming here. This is the territory of Yultisia, not the imperial palace. This is their place. They have a great opportunity to corner him and then ask him what exactly happened that very day. The young man smiled and replied that this time, too, she was showing him the right way. And now it's time to meet the guests, who they are not at all happy about. When Leold went outside, he noted that the sun's rays in Yultetia were quite scorching. When he saw Mr. Arvid, he said that they had not seen each other for a long time and had almost forgotten his face. He wanted to visit this place so much that the former emperor said he missed it every time he told him about Yultetia. The guy retorted that he would tell his innermost thoughts later because he needed to meet another guest. Then Ayorpik appeared from the carriage, and Arvid greeted her. Suddenly, at a short distance from the gentleman, a shoe fell and flew off her foot. The girl exclaimed that she had asked the maid to pull out new shoes, as she wanted to go down in them, but one had fallen. Would he help her? The young man understood perfectly well what she had in mind, so he began to walk in her direction, and as if by accident, stepped on a shoe. Leold laughed, and said that it seemed that the lord was confused at their first meeting, as she was too active. This is all very sweet, but for today, this is enough. After all, this is their first meeting. He will let her go, so let her calm down. The young man noted to himself that he knew that the fact that she was not wearing shoes was a complete lie. Ayer wanted to see him put the shoe on her as a sign that the head of the family bowed before her. However, something else is much more annoying than her impudent actions: the fact that the emperor is overprotective of her. He acted in such a way that the girl would be disgraced in this situation, but due to the intervention of the emperor, the situation was resolved. Although he is called the Empty Emperor, it is quite unusual for an ordinary lady to call him by his name so calmly. Then, Leold said that he was dying of hunger. Could he eat something simple before the banquet? The young man replied that yes, he would inform the butler about this, and they would see each other in the evening. He noted to himself that the emperor would definitely become a hindrance to him, and very soon he would meet Gloriosa. I really want to send him to the next world so that he becomes a ghost, but I need to control myself. Otherwise, due to the influence of ghosts, all the plants will dry up. The girl who diligently took care of the garden will be sad. There is nothing left to do but find another way, and today is only the first day. He is so curious how terrifying everything will be next. A little later, the vassals of the third generation of the Yultetia family admired that this mansion had become more luxurious than during the time of the previous head of the family. Count Oven, the head of the merchant guild, noted that it looked like they had spent a lot of money to have decorated everything inside with so many flowers. Count Dalvini, head of the Association of Artists, exclaimed that everything around was excellent. This sense of color, the red flowers decorating each column, isn't this art? Count Briccardi only muttered sullenly that everything was really beautiful. The man noted that, by the way, they say that the atmosphere of the two candidates is completely different. One resembles a firebird and has the commanding gaze of an adult. Another possesses innate charm and insight, and from an early age single-handedly occupied a high place in secular society. He thought to himself that he was of course interested in the one who had come up with a good product for business, for the head of the Richevel Trading Guild, namely Mrs. Gloriosa, since he was also the head of the guild. Then they heard the ladies' discussions that the lord was also a wonderful man. It was unknown who would become the head of the family, and he had already married. Lady Ayer-Pick was defeated, but she has the emperor behind her. If you think about the capital's connections in high society, then she has more support than the other candidate. She heard that Lady Gloriosa was expelled from the Elvor family. The artist noted that everyone has such different opinions as Briccardi generally believes. The man replied that in their situation, one could only wish for one thing, that whoever won, no one would surpass the previous chapter. But he wished that the new one at least would not harm her legacy. Suddenly, everyone is asked for a moment of attention as candidates for the role of head of the family enter the hall. From this moment, the banquet is declared open. A few hours ago, our heroine was thinking about how she had seen everything perfectly from the window, namely Arvid's first meeting with the two guests and the actions of the emperor. The little girl has already managed to draw her own conclusion, and Ayorpik is not only not kind, but also correspondingly greedy for the position of head of the family. Although the rival said that she was very glad that they met before the banquet, she is not as simple as she seems at first glance. Meanwhile, the second candidate called her maid named Na and said, "Come closer." Our heroine was very surprised that this could really be the same famous villainess who would become the emperor's beloved in the future. It turns out that before all this, she was Ayor's servant. It's really shocking, her outfit is much more nondescript than in the past, and her facial expression is gloomy, so I didn't even recognize her. The maid handed her a small box and said that it was a gift from the head of the Elvor family. The little girl felt as if she was struck by electricity. What had her older brother prepared for her? And most importantly, why? Pick smiled sweetly and asked to be sure to tell the head of the family that she had successfully passed it on to her. Gloriosa thought she had already overcome it, but her body immediately reacted at the mention of the name Magnus. She did not want to accept this gift, but told the maid to accept it and thank her instead. After which, she added that the lady was very busy, so she would leave. First Ayor shouted after her that she was very cold. The second candidate had given her the gift with such difficulty, and she wouldn't even say anything. Then she ran up to her, hugged her, and said that it was okay. No matter how cold a person was, if Ayor came up to him and his heart would open, she would change her unkind nature. The little one noted to herself that she was behaving as if the problem was in her, as if she was trying to re-educate her. Perhaps that was how she had lived until now. After which she turned around and said that if insult is her moral principle as a beauty, then artists will never stop painting her. When Pick asked her what she meant, Gloriosa replied that it was sad that she could not understand the meaning of her words, but she wished that in the future she would not have to meet guests from the kingdom of Genhil. The girl was indignant that she knew that Ayor did not speak the Genhil language, so that was why she was teasing him. But our heroine replied that of course no. This language is the basis of education, but it's okay if she doesn't speak it. But she noted to herself that she is perceptive, so she will understand if the little one says so. Gloriosa can teach her this language. It is her courtesy, so it will hurt her if she refuses. We need to respond to each other with sympathy for sympathy. Then it was announced loudly, so that everyone would pay attention, that candidates for the position of head of the family were entering the hall. Gloriosa noted to herself that there were a lot of guests. She learned the names, surnames, and characteristics of all 27 families who are devoted to Yoltisha. Of course, Ayor did the same. Also, our heroine remembered their portraits, so she will be able to immediately recognize who is who. On that side are the Counts Ovendalvini and Brucardi. They must certainly remember it today. She is actually very concerned about the gift sent by her elder brother, but now she must focus on the banquet. The rival did not waste time, so she began to approach the guests and say that she was very glad to meet people from the south. Our heroine immediately stated that she had decided to act very actively from the very beginning, but her actions would be different. 2 more people have not arrived to the banquet, so it is not the time to start friendly conversations with strangers. It was immediately announced that a replacement for the post of head of the Yoltetsia family would now appear, namely Arvid. Our heroine was very surprised that the young man appeared without a blindfold, and yet he is incredibly handsome. His eyes are too beautiful a color to be called simply red. The young man can see her perfectly well, because everything in the banquet hall is furnished with her flowers. It was then announced that the gentleman who possessed the blessing of the majestic deer was entering, namely His Highness the Emperor. When everyone started bowing to him, the guy said that they should straighten their backs and not have to observe etiquette too much. He then approached Arvid and said that the banquets in the south were indeed wonderful. Similar events in the imperial palace were incredibly boring. The youth thanked him skeptically, and he added that initially the banquets in this place were no different from the imperial ones until the red star of Yoltisia appeared. Our heroine noted to herself that the young man says nice things about her in front of everyone. This will help her get a good rating from people. Ayor approached Leold and said what he was doing. How could he take the Lord of Yoltecha for himself? The boy exclaimed that his charming cousin was bothering him. The girl was indignant that this was too much. The little girl noted to herself that in one moment she had taken the attention that was intended for her. Her experience of being at the top of high society was felt. On the one hand, it's charming, but on the other hand, it's very reckless. What do other people think? Looking at the expressions on the Count's faces, the little girl noted that she knew it. It seemed that these 3 did not consider her charming either. Ayor greeted the Lord and said that she would introduce herself formally again, then gave her name and asked him to take care of her in the future. When the boy noted that she had arrived just in time, the girl exclaimed that the Lord was glad to see her after all. Her brother noted that indeed, It seemed that they had become close in a short time. But suddenly, the young man turned around and wished them a pleasant evening. Then he approached our heroine and said that there was already one person he had to take care of. Gloriosa exclaimed that he was an emperor after all. How could that be? The young man replied that everything was fine because he was on the territory of Yoltecha, and if he wanted to live like a true emperor, he had to win his heart while he was in that place. The gentleman was not going to change his behavior, after which he extended his hand and asked if she would do him the honor of giving him her first dance. The little one smiled and replied that she would be happy to. The emperor said sarcastically, "What a surprise what to do now." But then he extended his hand to his cousin and asked her to dance with the emperor. The musicians were immediately ordered to start playing their instruments, and all the guests began to dance. Our heroine noted to herself that Ayur had already been attacked twice, and he had saved her. Leold is a man with the ability to diffuse an awkward situation. As I told Arvid, there is no point in swearing allegiance to a scarecrow without real power. But with such skill, this journey could be a chance for the emperor to capture the minds of the people of the south and increase his influence. But why did the regent allow the emperor to make such a journey? She must have decided that he would not be able to win the hearts of the people in this place. Without such confidence, it would have been impossible. Then she suddenly remembered the young man's words, that the last place his mother visited before her death was the emperor's palace, and she realized that he was definitely involved in her death. After which she said that she wanted to find out something from the emperor, whether she could quickly go to him. The guy replied that he was jealous, but would not dare to stop her. Since this was a welcoming banquet, the chance to approach the emperor was small if she missed the moment. Now she would have to request a meeting separately. At that time, he would already find a way to attack her. So at the moment, it's a great place to get to know each other. She knows the future, so she's in a better position. 884. In the year of the death of the previous emperor, the current one was only 1 year old. Because of this, the young ruler needed a reagent. 8885. Octavia changed her name to Octaviana, took this place, and gained power. Time passed, the emperor had already grown up, but the regent did not transfer power. Leold, who was unable to protest against this, seemed like a man who was seized by a weak spot and tied hand and foot. What if the reason is that the regent hid the emperor's mistake? The guy noted that the red star that decorated this banquet had come up. The little girl replied that he was overpraising her. Gloriosa Yultatia greets the noble reindeer. The banquet was able to flourish thanks to his participation. I noted to myself that now all attention was directed at them, as expected. Of course, since this is the first meeting between the emperor and the candidate for the post of head of the family from the southern side, it cannot but be a fascinating spectacle for them. The young man asked her if she knew what was needed for an interesting first meeting. I wonder if they can become a couple today or not. We need to find out. Our heroine asked how it was possible to become lovers so easily in an instant. The young man replied that this is how they behave in the capital. Gloriosa objected that it seemed that there were not yet sufficient friendly relations between them for such a thing. The young man noted that it seemed that he had been caught. Did it really look so careless? The little one noted to herself that fortunately she knew very well what kind of people the emperor had a weakness for. A calm character, not hesitating in the face of danger, enjoying attack more than defense. A man who, instead of crying, laughs with his eyes and answers briefly. In order to reveal the secret about Lady Grace, she must become exactly such a person. After which she said that he speaks casually, but at the same time does not seem to be such a simple person as he looks. Leold replied that they say that the emperor's tongue is his weapon, and in the world, such a thing is considered impudence. The girl objected that he enjoys it. The guy can't punish our heroine and lose such fun. 7 years later, the emperor will bring a changed Na as his lover, and will stand by her side at official celebrations. The girl who became the emperor's beloved was a real apostate. The young man gradually changed her, or he could bring out her true appearance. It is possible that the emperor, together with Ayur, came to this place before the resurrection of Gloriosa. He and the maid definitely became lovers. After meeting here, can she use their relationship? After which, she asked a question about asking each other about things that interest them. In honor of the first meeting, the guy asked what to do if it was a difficult question. The girl answered that there would be 3 questions. Only one must be answered, the other 2 could be left unanswered. When asked what if he wasn't curious about her, the little one retorted, "That was it possible if it was true, then why was he wasting his precious time talking to her?" The emperor laughed loudly and replied that, well, he would take part in this pleasant dispute since he was made to laugh. Then he asked what she was curious to know about him. Our heroine immediately asked point blank whether he had killed Mrs. Grace. It was only in her imagination she wants to ask him directly, but she can't. There is no more stupid thing to do in this situation than this. Then she said that, although they were in such a situation, could she become a friend to His Majesty? While the little one was wondering whether they were enemies or friends, and whether the emperor was the only one on Eyerpick's side, the boy replied that of course he had a magnanimous character. There is nothing more wonderful than meeting a new friend in a new place. He is going hunting in the Gatuza forest soon. How about going together? The girl replied that it was a wonderful offer, but she would refuse. She was afraid that she would become a hindrance since she had never hunted. Leold replied that there was no need to worry if she remembered that her brother was a skilled hunter, then she would also quickly learn everything. The little girl noted to herself that she didn't want to learn this. Why should peaceful animals living in the forest lose their lives? Hunting isn't even slaughter for food, but just a simple pastime. The young man noted that, judging by the expression on her face, she was clearly against hunting. There was also a fuss in the capital about problems with hunting. Several groups formed, claiming that women could hunt better than men, in response to which men's hunting groups increased in number, so an organization emerged that opposed hunting. It is a pity that now His Majesty does not know whether their friendship will be eternal if she does not like hunting. Ayur loves hunting, so she can't help but go. And she stated that she hates this activity. Our heroine stated that it seems that Lady Pick is one of the members of the Women Hunters Club. The young man replied that it was true that her mother, the Marquise, was standing in the vanguard and leading this club. Gloriosa said that now it was clear who she took after for being so brave, but she noted to herself that the splattered blood, the arrow that pierced the body, and the countless deaths, could she really enjoy that? Her mother was a kind person. Every year, she wandered through the cedar forest during the hatching season, worrying about whether the chicks had fallen out of the nest. Thinking about her, the little one does not want to side with the hunters. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the guy who said that now it was his turn to ask a question. He was not interested in anything, but a question had just arisen. We must assume that a man and a horse fell into the sea. Both of them cannot swim, and only she can save them. Who will she save first? Our heroine noted that this was mockery, but the young man objected that this was a question with a simple choice. The teacher often torments him with such questions. The little girl noted to herself that many people had gathered. There were more than 30 people there, and everyone was listening to her words. Therefore, her answer is the answer of a candidate for the post of head of the family. Her thinking and choice extends to all the possessions of Yulticha. The young man put her in a difficult situation and is waiting for an answer about what a bad hobby he has. After which she replied that she would first save the horse, firstly in Yulticha. Where she is the head of the family, there will always be a rescue squad on the seashore. Such a system will not fall apart. Secondly, for the safety of all, logs will be launched into the vast sea, and nets will be set up so that people can hold out. Even if the rescuers are late, people will be able to safely wait for help, but this is not why she will save the horse in the first place. She has a sensitive understanding with the owner. So many people consider horses as a friend or family member. Some wish that a precious friend would be saved before they are. Then she looked at the reactions of some people and noted to herself that she knew that many would consider this nonsense, but there were definitely those who would listen to her words. One of these people is none other than Count Brucardi. Even if 100 people laugh, she will remain satisfied if the count is on her side. Suddenly, the guy realized that it was like a fairy tale that a little child dreams of. Gloriosa noted to herself that he looked too pleased for someone who thought so. Perhaps he thought the same as she did. What she was most concerned about was what Count Brucardi thought about this, whether he liked her answer. There is nothing more important than to win over the 3 families of vassals Yulticia Dalvini, responsible for culture, art, and education, Brucardi, who leads the armed forces and ensures security, and also Oven, who represents the trade and business of this region. Among them, Brucardi was expected to become a master of the sword. Plus, he was Arvid's father's fencing teacher, so she wants to look dignified. Therefore, it will be very good if this man takes her side. Noticing out of the corner of her eye that Ayur was taking Arvid somewhere, the little one noted that she was up to something again. And the guy said that now it was her turn to ask a question again. Gloriosa came to her senses and said that indeed, after which she asked if he hated anyone. She noted to herself that in her case, it was the older brother. What did he put in the box that he passed on through the second candidate? Suddenly, the young man replied that yes, even at that moment he hated himself. Then he raised his finger to his lips and said that it seemed that today's conversation would have to end here. Suddenly, the butler's voice was heard asking for a moment of attention. Then he opened the box and said that this was the symbol of the head of the Yultasia family. He presents to everyone the tiara of the head of the family. 10 minutes ago, Ayur came up to Arvid and said that he really has beautiful eyes. Why does he walk around with them closed in everyday life? When the boy replied that if she looked closely, she would see that he was blind, the girl objected that he didn't look that way at all, and that he seemed to know who was where. The young man noted to himself that this was a funny provocation. She wanted to know if he had pretended not to see during their first meeting. After which he said that nothing could be done. It seemed that the lady had something to say, so he asked everyone to step aside. The girl was glad that they could finally have a safe conversation alone. She had been waiting for a moment like this. The young man replied that if she really wasn't stupid, then she knew perfectly well that she wasn't welcome here. Ayur replied that of course she knows, but she just doesn't pay attention to it and wants to make one remark, let him not behave so dryly, because she could become his future wife. The head of the family is chosen by the patron spirit, isn't it? Ayur believes in the justice of Yultichia. Arvid replied that unless the patron spirit had gone mad, he would not choose a lady who was still a young girl. The girl objected that it was a good thing that she was charming, but if she only behaved seriously, like some people, it would be difficult to win the sympathy of many people. The young man replied that she was mistaken. One is not elected head of a family for charm. The baby replied that they would still see Ayur would become the head of the family, who would be loved by everyone in the south, because she did not come to this village to live being locked here. There is a lot that needs to be developed in the current Yultitia, because trams have not even been introduced here. At this rate, won't the south become an even bigger laughingstock? What this place needs now is a powerful lady like her. Let him not forget that marriage is not concluded according to the desire of the heart. The guy noted that it is very aristocratic. The girl replied that, by the way, she is an aristocrat of the highest rank. When she added that, after all, the Lord was the same, the guy objected that if it were his former self, he might have doubted a little and would have wanted to hear about such a self-confident plan for the development of Yultashia. However, after meeting Gloriosa, love cannot be removed from his wedding plans. At least he will never marry Ayur. After which the voice of the butler was heard, who presented to everyone the tiara of the head of the family. It is passed down from generation to generation, since the time of the second head of the family. The tiara has the appropriate historical value, but there is something more special, namely, this precious stone, the ancient Aegon stone. There are only 3 of them in the whole world. Unlike in the past, when magic was only used by mages in modern times, items have been invented that can be used by ordinary people if magic is poured into the Aegon. One of such inventions is the first tram in the history of the empire. In the capital lines were laid and a carriage without horses was set in motion, a means of transportation that he immediately found interesting, although he gave up because of the decisive disadvantage that people get burned during the stone extraction stage. If you bring your hand to unprocessed Aegon, you will get a deep burn. But of course, everything will work out if you work in special equipment. But if you do this, the speed of extraction will decrease. Of course, stone is a consumable material. In order for a tram to move all day without stopping, it is necessary to spend a huge amount of stones. I wonder how the regent managed to obtain such a quantity of material. I need to find out. Then he noted that the second candidate seemed to have shifted her attention elsewhere. Gloriosa was also in the midst of a conversation with the aristocrats. Will it be his turn soon? It seems like tonight will be a long night. After some time, the little girl thought tiredly that who knew that the banquet would end, only now she met too many people at once. Suddenly, a young man appeared and asked if he could disturb her for a moment. He came because he was worried, because today's banquet was going to be long. When there was no answer, the guy stated that he knew she was very tired. Yawning, our heroine tried to pretend that everything was fine. But then she suddenly laid her head on the young man's shoulder and fell fast asleep. The young man immediately kissed her on the top of her head and wished her good night. The next day, the baby thought that yesterday, Arvid definitely visited her, but she can't understand whether that kiss was a dream or reality. But she was also glad that he simply came, after which she realized that it was enough to think about it, she needed to work. By the way, it is very interesting about what business the owner of the trade guild sent the letter. The boy asked how the little star Yultesia was doing. He was diligently fulfilling the duty she had entrusted to him. It seems that the issue with the hostel will be easily resolved. There is one abandoned temple, the current owner of which promised to put it up for sale at a low price. Of course, the young man did so that he could not help but put it up for sale at a low price. Things are also going well with the confectionery. He hired experts in their field, so he will soon send her samples. Let her not forget about his efforts. He will contact her again. All the best. Gloriosa noted to herself that things seemed to be going well for him, so she wouldn't have to worry about that. Now the problem remained in another, the gift sent by the elder brother. It was necessary to open it. Soon, Ayur will definitely ask about him, but she does not want to show her weakness, which is hatred for Magnus. I wonder what kind of dirty trick he's going to use this time. When our heroine finally opened the box, she saw a note and a seed of a man eating flower in it. Does this man still think that she will tremble with fear at the sight of this plant? Her brother still considers her a worthless child whom he bullied. The note began with the words Gloriosa, his beloved younger sister. Her brother will do anything for her. There is no need to worry about anything, and let him try for the sake of becoming the head of the Yultetia family. Of course, he is not going to demand anything, because she will become the head of the family. The young man was always proud of her. Our heroine found this too suspicious. Magnus could not write something like that. The handwriting was very similar to the older brother's, but someone definitely forged this letter. Not knowing what kind of seed it was, they just left it lying there. Who did this? Magnus is a strict, suspicious person, so he did everything himself from wrapping the gift to handing it over to Ayur. Who could have had a hand in this? Who, why, where, and how? Meanwhile, Lem sat on the roof, watching the little girl, and thinking that it was still too much to send a letter to his own sister in this way. If he had not had the desire to secretly enter Elvor, there would have been trouble. Of course, it was an unauthorized entry. The owner of the mansion's window just suddenly broke. Well then, what is the best way to teach a lesson to a brother who does not know how to appreciate his younger sister? At such moments, of course, the best thing would be a long and painful punishment. After a short period of time, Magnus was informed that Lem Roshen Yultetia was requesting a meeting. The man suggested having a drink and talking about the future of the empire. The young man was horrified at what this snake was doing here. When they sat down at the table, the man said that this was not his vaunted ingredient. The drink left much to be desired. There is an aroma, but no taste. The guy retorted that if he doesn't like it so much, then let them go back to the south. Lem replied that if he had the opportunity, he would have left long ago and drank his own wine, but he could not interfere with the newlyweds, his son and his bride. Magnus did not understand why this man had come here at all. They said that the regent had sent him to the kingdom of Gunhil. If he had already finished his business, then why didn't he get out of here? Lem continued that his son and his wife seemed to be simply beaming with happiness. The guy continued to be angry to himself that he appeared in front of the main gate without warning, and began to command no respect for him. This man is simply a snake's spawn. I never liked him. The man has great strength, but always behaves like an eccentric. He is lazy and willful. You have to look for someone so disgusting. They are both equal dukes in reality, so why does Magnus still feel like a child around him? Suddenly, the uninvited guest declared that he hated it when someone invaded his lands and did not like it when strangers interfered in his affairs. The guy replied that he didn't understand what was being discussed, but he didn't expect to hear this from a man whose son had taken his sister from the family. Then, he decided to take advantage of the moment and escape, so he said that he didn't want to waste any more time. He needed to go. But the man looked at him menacingly and ordered him to stop immediately. The conversation was not over, so let him not dare to be impudent. The guy was scared that it had just happened. For a second it seemed to him that a snake had appeared in the room. Lem continued that he should avoid meeting his daughter-in-law alone. His son's warning seemed to be insufficient. Then he put his hand on his shoulder and said that in that case, he himself would explain everything to him. Let him remember that wherever the young man is, he always watches him. And now he asks for forgiveness. But it is time for him to go about his business. The young man thought that all this in his words seemed familiar. Then it dawned on him that he had told Gloriosa the same thing in the letter. It was written there that worthless children like her always return to Elvor. Let her remember, wherever she is, he always watches over her. The young man was beside himself with rage when it happened that he allowed himself to be made a fool of all because of his younger sister. The previous head of the family predicted that this monster would kill him one day. Eeyore Pick must win and become the head of the family. What should he do to satisfy the regent? Maybe attack the north? Hearing the screams, Lem noted that he did not even have a devoted servant to calm him down at such moments. Surely it would be easy for a black island to enter such a house. The knight replied that of course let him leave it to him. Meanwhile, the little girl stretched and noted that she was finally finished with the evaluation sheets. She started early in the morning, and it is now noon, thanks to Rivalry, who prepared so many wonderful samples. Tomorrow, Gloriosa will hand over these sheets to the assistant of the head of the trade guild, and the business is almost finished. We can rest a little. When the little one went out into the garden, the plants immediately began to tell her that she had worked hard today, so she noted to herself that they were very kind and would always be on her side. Suddenly, the girl began to hear some strange eerie sounds and did not understand why they were heard in her garden. Our heroine didn't waste any time and decided to go and see who was causing trouble. It turned out that it was the servant of the second candidate named Na, who was sitting near the tree and crying bitterly. After some time, our heroine asked her to eat more slowly, but she noted to herself that she always devoured her food with gusto. Meetings with the maid became regular. In fact, they had seen each other for the 5th time, and during these days, she managed to find out something. Firstly, the current Na is shy, withdrawn, and extremely fearful. This image is so different from the future that it simply does not fit in the head. Secondly, the girl is a real glutton. She continues to eat even if her stomach is full. Sometimes she has to be given a remedy for the heaviness in her stomach. The maid certainly shouldn't go hungry, but such a brutal appetite suggests exhaustion. After which she said that she didn't want to interfere. But was she really being fed so poorly? The girl replied that no, she was just too stupid, constantly making mistakes when she was nervous, and spoke too slowly. The little girl asked that if it was so hard for her, maybe she should quit her job, but the maid objected that it was not up to her to decide. She was Lady Eeyore's lifelong servant. This is a polite name for slaves, who are deprived of all freedom. They cannot leave their master until death, and they are not paid and have no privileges. It is believed that such a practice was abandoned many years ago, but young Na is still in submission. Incredibly, the house of the second candidate continues to amaze. The little one asked if she was hurt anywhere, because if anything happened, she could help, but the maid exclaimed that everything was fine. Gloriosa knew that in the future, she would break into high society and easily conquer it. Her special mocking voice, cold gaze, black as ebony hair, and seductive scarlet lips, as well as the caustic words that burst out as soon as she opens her mouth. It is this image that will allow her to win a place in high society, so the little one does not think that her current innocence is all that she is. Our heroine plans to help her and win her favor, because she will become the source of all valuable information. Suddenly, the little girl heard the trees rustling and realized that someone was approaching. When Gloriosa came outside, she saw the emperor, who said out loud that he wondered if he would be scolded if he risked trying every fruit. The girl replied that of course, although he had already picked too many. The guy exclaimed that this was a red star. It turns out that this was her garden. Forgive me, it was just really delicious. It seems that she is in the middle of her tea party. Did he disturb her too much? The little one objected. How could she dare to say that His Highness had disturbed her, and there was no need to peel the skin with her teeth? She already noted to herself that perhaps his appearance is worth rejoicing at inside. Now there is Na. She will be able to become a link between them. Then she herself will receive benefits in the future. The young man said that he was used to being where he was not welcomed. He would sit with her for a while and then move on. When the young man entered, the maid immediately fell to her knees and began to greet him. But he told her to get up, because he doesn't like excessive politeness. Our heroine did not understand what it was. She clearly saw that she had pointed ears. Then the guy asked her what her name was, since she was a guest of the candidate for head of the family. The girl answered that Na Leold noted that he had never heard this name, but for some reason it seemed familiar to him. Gloriosa noted to herself that judging by his reaction, she had not made a strong impression on him. Today, the little girl would learn a lot of unexpected things. She needed to concentrate on the conversation. The emperor asked if the little red star had ever been in the desert. The girl replied that no, she had never been there. The guy noted that he was interested in her. The southern lands are famous for their desserts. He would like to spend the night there sometime. Our heroine noted to herself that although it is difficult to admit he is handsome, but he still can't compare with the young lord. There are many guests in Yulticha now. What if someone falls in love with him? Then the young man handed the maid a slice of some fruit and told her to try it because they had a wonderful aroma.